The champagne flute trembled in my hand as I stood before 200 guests at the Riverside Country Club. My brother Adrian sat at the head table, his arm draped possessively around his fiancée Victoria, that same self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips that I'd seen too many times before. "Before we toast the happy couple," I said, pulling out my phone, "I thought we should all hear something special, a recording from 2 years ago that perfectly captures the bond between siblings." Adrian's smile faltered. "Just slightly. Just enough." I pressed play. His voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear despite the background noise of the hotel bar where I'd secretly recorded him. "Tomorrow's the big day, boys. My precious little sister finally gets her fairy tale wedding." Laughter from his friends. "Too bad about the food poisoning that's about to hit the catering staff. Amazing what a few $100 and some ipecac can accomplish." Gasps rippled through the room. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. The recording continued. "Your big day is ruined, just like you deserve. Little Miss Perfect finally gets to see what disappointment feels like." I clicked stop. The silence was absolute. "Cheers to karma," I said, raising my glass to Adrian's ashen face. "And to Victoria. You deserve to know exactly who you're marrying." Victoria stood slowly, her engagement ring catching the light as she pulled it off. She didn't throw it, didn't make a scene, just set it carefully on the table and walked out, her heels clicking against the marble floor in the silence. The room erupted. But to understand how we got here, to this moment of perfect, devastating justice, you need to know about my wedding day, and about the 30 years of cruelty that led to it. Adrian was the golden child from birth. 3 years older, blessed with my father's height and my mother's charm, he could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. I was the afterthought, quiet, bookish, perpetually in his shadow. He weaponized that shadow early. When I was 6 and lost my first tooth, Adrian convinced me the tooth fairy was actually a tooth witch who would curse me if I didn't give her all my Halloween candy. When I was 10 and won the school spelling bee, he accidentally spilled grape juice on my certificate. When I was 16 and had my first boyfriend, Adrian told him I had a contagious skin condition. "Just joking around," he'd say when caught. Siblings tease each other. "Don't be so sensitive, Rosie." My parents always bought it. Boys will be boys. He's just being protective. You need to develop thicker skin. So I did. I developed skin so thick that I stopped telling my family about my achievements, my relationships, my dreams. I went to college across the country, built a career in biomedical engineering, found love with James, all without sharing more than the bare minimum with my family. Which is why Adrian was shocked when I announced my engagement. "Little Rosie's getting married." He'd laughed at the family dinner where I'd shared the news. "To an actual human man, not one of those lab experiments you're always fiddling with." "His name is James," I'd said calmly. "He's a pediatric surgeon. We've been together for 3 years. Adrian's eyes had narrowed. In our family's mythology, he was supposed to be the successful one. The one who hit milestones first. The one whose life everyone celebrated. 3 years, and this is the first we're hearing about it. My mother clutched her pearls. "Rosalind, how could you keep this from us?" I wanted to be sure, I said, though the real answer was, I wanted to keep something Adrian couldn't ruin. But I'd underestimated him. The wedding planning started smoothly. James and I wanted something simple minus 150 guests, garden ceremony, reception at the Fairmont Hotel. My parents insisted on contributing, thrilled to finally be part of my life again. Adrian appointed himself unofficial wedding coordinator. "You need help," he announced. "You've always been scattered, Rosie. Details aren't your strong suit." "I design medical devices for a living," I reminded him. "I think I can handle a wedding." But he wore me down with family pressure. "My mother." "Let him help, sweetheart. He planned that beautiful fundraiser for his company." "My father." "Adrian has connections. He can get you discounts." So I let him in. Just a little. Just enough. The sabotage started small. Vendors would call to confirm changes I hadn't made. The florist nearly ordered lilies, which I'm deathly allergic to, because Adrian had updated my preferences. The band almost learned a playlist full of songs from my awkward teenage years. Each time, Adrian played innocent. Miscommunication. Trying to help. "You said you wanted lilies, didn't you?" I started documenting everything, keeping vendors on a separate email chain he didn't know about. I thought I was protecting myself. I wasn't protecting myself enough. 3 days before the wedding, I was at my bachelorette party, a quiet wine tasting with my closest friends, when my phone exploded with texts. The catering manager, half my staff just called in sick. Food poisoning outbreak, we might have to cancel. The florist, your brother just called to cancel the entire order. Please confirm. The venue coordinator, Mr. Morrison says you're postponing. I need to hear from you directly. I excused myself and called Adrian. He answered on the first ring, bar noise loud in the background. Rosie, how's the party? Not too wild, I hope. Wouldn't want you hungover for the big day. Adrian, what did you do? What? I can't hear you. I'm out with the guys celebrating my baby sister's last days of freedom. I hung up and called James. We have a problem. We spent the next 48 hours in damage control mode. James's sister knew a backup catering company. My maid of honor had a cousin in floral wholesale. We confirmed and reconfirmed every detail, password protected every vendor account. But Adrian had one more card to play. The morning of my wedding, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the hotel windows and my phone buzzing with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Adrian at a bar, surrounded by his friends, all raising shots. The timestamp was 2:47 a.m. The caption, to ruining perfect little Rosie's perfect little wedding. My hands shook as I scrolled to the next message. Another photo. Adrian handing cash to someone in catering whites. Then another, him on the phone grinning. The final message was a voice recording. I played it with my heart in my throat. Your big date is ruined, just like you deserve, Adrian's drunken voice slurred. Finally get to see Princess Rosalind realize she's not better than the rest of us. Not smarter. Not special. Just lucky, and luck runs out. The messages ended with, thought you should know what your brother really thinks. He's been bragging all night. I'm nobody, just couldn't stand listening anymore. Good luck today. I sat on the bed, staring at my wedding dress, as rage crystallized into something colder. Clearer. I forwarded everything to my email, then called my tech-savvy cousin Mark. I need you to help me save some audio files. Multiple backups. Cloud storage. Everything. Rosie, you okay? I will be, I said. After today, I will be. The wedding itself was beautiful. The backup caterers were actually better than the original. The wholesale flowers looked stunning. Adrian showed up late, clearly hungover, wearing sunglasses inside the church. Rough night? I asked as he took his place as groomsman. You know me, he said with that familiar smirk. Always celebrating my little sister's achievements. Yes, I said. I do know you. During the reception, he gave a toast. Called me his baby sister who always tried so hard. Joked about how some of us are born graceful and some of us have to work for everything. The crowd laughed politely, uncomfortably. James squeezed my hand under the table. We could play it now, he whispered. No, I murmured back. Today is our day. He doesn't get to be the center of attention. So I smiled. Danced. Cut the cake. Threw the bouquet. Let Adrian believe he'd won whatever sick game he'd been playing our whole lives. But I kept the recording. Saved and backed up and waiting. Because I knew Adrian, knew his patterns, knew that someone who needed to sabotage his sister's wedding would eventually have a big day of his own. I just had to wait. 2 years passed. I focused on my marriage, my career, my life. Adrian and I barely spoke beyond mandatory family gatherings, where I was politely distant and he was smugly superior. Then came the announcement. Adrian was engaged to Victoria Ashworth, heiress to a hotel fortune, and the exact type of woman he'd always dreamed of landing. Beautiful, connected, and wealthy enough to make him feel like he finally won. The engagement party invitation arrived on expensive cardstock. Black tie. Riverside Country Club. A who's who of society guests. We don't have to go, James said. Oh, we're going, I replied, fingering the flash drive where I'd saved the recording. We're definitely going. I bought a new dress. Had my hair professionally done. Wore the diamond earrings James had given me for our anniversary. The ones Adrian had joked were probably fake because biomedical engineers don't make real money. We arrived precisely on time. Not early enough to seem eager. Not late enough to make an entrance. Just present, part of the crowd, until the moment was right. Victoria found me at the bar. Rosalind, I'm so glad you could make it. Adrian talks about you all the time. I'm sure he does, I said, genuinely liking her. She seemed smart, accomplished, unaware of what she was signing up for. How did you two meet? Charity fundraiser. He outbid everyone for a dinner with me, she laughed. Spent $20,000 just to take me out. Said he knew I was the one the moment he saw me. More like he knew your net worth the moment he Googled you, I thought but didn't say. He's lucky to have you, I said instead, and meant it. She was lucky too. Lucky I was about to save her from a lifetime with someone who viewed relationships as competitions and love as a weapon. The moment came during toasts. Adrian's best man had just finished a rambling story about their college days when the microphone was passed around for family. I stood. I'd like to say something. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly, but he gestured magnanimously. Of course. Everyone, my sister Rosalind. We were just talking about how she couldn't make it to the engagement dinner last month. Work obligations, you know. There had been no engagement dinner, no invitation. Another little dig, making me look like the absent, uncaring sister. I smiled and took the microphone. Family is so important, I began. It shapes who we are, who we become. Adrian certainly shaped me. Taught me to be strong, to document everything, to always have backup plans. Nervous laughter from the crowd. Adrian's smile tightened. Before we toast the happy couple, I thought we should all hear something special. A recording from 2 years ago that perfectly captures the bond between siblings. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the sound system with a cable I tested earlier. Adrian started to stand, but Victoria put her hand on his arm. Then his voice filled the room. Clear, undeniable. Damning. I let it play all the way through, the planning, the bragging, the cruelty, the cash exchanging hands, every horrible word. When it finished, I looked directly at Victoria. You deserve to know exactly who you're marrying. Someone who would sabotage his sister's wedding for the crime of being happy. Someone who takes pleasure in others' pain. Someone who sees love as a competition and family as obstacles to overcome. Victoria's face had gone pale, then red, then pale again. She looked at Adrian, waiting for a denial, an explanation, anything. That's out of context, he stammered. I was drunk, joking around. Rosie, how could you? Cheers to karma, I said, raising my glass. Victoria stood slowly with a dignity I admired. She removed her ring, a massive diamond that probably cost more than my wedding, and set it on the table. I need some air, she said quietly, then louder, to the room. The party's over. She walked out, head high, leaving Adrian gaping at the head table. The silence stretched until someone, I think it was my cousin Mark, started a slow clap. Others joined in. Not everyone, but enough. I handed the microphone back to the stunned DJ and returned to my seat. Ready to go? James asked, pride shining in his eyes. Almost, I said. Adrian had stumbled over to our table, his face contorted with rage. You vindictive. Careful, I said calmly. Everyone's recording on their phones now. Do you really want another video going viral? He looked around, saw the raised phones, the watching eyes. Why? He asked, and for the first time in our lives, he sounded genuinely bewildered. I'm your brother. No, I said. You're someone who happened to be born into my family. Brothers protect each other, support each other. They don't spend 30 years trying to diminish their siblings' light because they're afraid it makes their own look dimmer. I made you stronger. Abuse doesn't make people stronger, Adrian. Surviving it does. And I survived you. I stood taking James's hand. Good luck with the fallout. Oh, in the hotel? They charge a 50% cancellation fee for parties over 100 people. Victoria's father owns the venue, so I doubt you'll get a family discount. We left him standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of his own making. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The video, because of course someone recorded it, went viral in our social circles. #WeddingSaboteur trended locally for a day. Victoria gave an interview to a society blogger about dodging a bullet and the importance of knowing someone's character before committing. Adrian lost more than a fiancé. He lost his reputation, his social standing, the carefully constructed image of the charming, successful older brother. Our parents, forced to confront evidence they couldn't dismiss as sibling teasing, finally saw him clearly. How could you? My mother asked me at a family dinner a month later, just the three of us, Adrian notably absent. Your own brother? How could he? I countered. My wedding day, Mom. He tried to ruin my wedding day because he couldn't stand to see me happy. She had no answer for that. Adrian moved to Seattle. Started over with a new job, new circles, new people who didn't know the story. He sent me an email 6 months after the party. I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life. I responded. I didn't destroy anything. I just showed everyone who you really are. The destruction was all your own. He didn't write back. 5 years later, I still have the recording. Not out of spite, but as a reminder. A reminder that staying silent in the face of cruelty isn't strength. It's complicity in your own diminishment. That family isn't an excuse for abuse. That sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the truth about the person they're about to marry. Victoria sends a Christmas card every year. She married a cardiac surgeon who, by all accounts, adores her. Her notes always end the same way. Thank you for the best wedding gift I never knew I needed. James and I have 2 daughters now. Sometimes I watch them play, the older one naturally taking charge, and I intervene when teasing crosses into cruelty, when just joking becomes just mean, when sibling rivalry threatens to become something darker. Because patterns repeat unless someone breaks them, and sometimes breaking them requires playing a recording at an engagement party while 200 people watch a bully finally face consequences. Adrian thought he'd ruined my wedding. Instead, he gave me the evidence I needed to save Victoria from a lifetime of wondering why her husband took such pleasure in her pain. He gave me the proof our family needed to finally see past his charm. He gave me the moment when I stood in that ballroom, watching karma unfold in real time, and realized I wasn't his victim anymore. I was just his sister, and I finally taught him what that was supposed to mean.
The needle slipped from my trembling fingers and clattered onto the bathroom floor, a tiny drop of blood beating on my thigh where I'd missed the injection site. Again. "Poppy, you okay in there?" Elias called through the door, his voice carrying that familiar note of impatience disguised as concern. "Fine," I lied, staring at the scattered fertility medications covering our marble countertop like some twisted pharmacy explosion. Lupron, Follistim, progesterone, my daily cocktail of hope and humiliation for the past 5 years. My name is Poppy, and I'm 34 years old with the reproductive system of a broken vending machine. No matter how much money you feed it, nothing comes out. I cleaned up the mess and joined Elias in our bedroom, where he was already scrolling through his phone, probably checking work emails. The man could multitask his way through an apocalypse. "Ready for dinner at your parents'?" I asked, though we both knew it wasn't really a question. Sunday dinners at Randy and Stella's weren't optional in the Butler family hierarchy. "Actually, Vanessa's coming tonight, too. She said she has some big announcement." My stomach clenched. Vanessa, Elias's golden child sister, only made big announcements when she wanted maximum attention and applause. Last time it was her engagement to some investment banker who lasted exactly 4 months. "Great," I muttered, applying concealer to the bruises on my arms where the IV needles had left their marks. Battle scars from another failed IVF cycle that nobody in his family bothered to ask about. The drive to his parents' house was quiet, except for the radio playing some cheerful pop song that felt like mockery. Elias drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, and I watched the familiar neighborhoods blur past. Perfect lawns, perfect houses, perfect families, probably sitting down to perfect Sunday dinners. Randy opened the door before we could knock, his booming voice filling the foyer. "There they are. Come in, come in. Stella's made her famous pot roast." Stella appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, her smile brightening considerably when she spotted Elias. "My baby boy," she cooed, pulling him into a hug that lasted about 10 seconds longer than the polite nod she gave me. "Hi, Stella," I said. "Poppy." She managed to make my name sound like a minor inconvenience. "How are you feeling? You look tired?" Translation: "You look like hell, and we all know why." "I'm fine, thank you." Vanessa burst through the front door like she was making a grand entrance at the Oscars, her long blonde hair perfectly styled despite the October wind outside. At 31, She still had that effortless beauty that made waiters stumble over themselves and made me feel invisible. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was insane." She hugged everyone except me, settling for a brief wave in my direction. We gathered around the dining room table, the same table where I'd endured countless conversations about other people's pregnancies, baby showers I wasn't invited to, and subtle hints about my situation. The pot roast was excellent, as always. Stella's cooking was one of the few things about these dinners I genuinely enjoyed. "So," Randy said, cutting into his meat with surgical precision, "Vanessa mentioned she had news to share." Vanessa set down her fork and looked around the table, her eyes bright with excitement. "Well, I've been thinking a lot lately about family, about what really matters. Here we go. And I know how much you two have been struggling," she continued, her gaze landing on Elias and then briefly on me. "I can't imagine how heartbreaking it must be." Elias reached over and squeezed my hand. "We're managing," he said quietly. "That's just it, though," Vanessa said, her voice rising with enthusiasm. "You don't have to just manage. I want to help." Stella leaned forward. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "I want to be your surrogate." The words hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. I felt my fork slip from my fingers. "I'm young, I'm healthy, and I love you both so much. I want to give you the family you've always dreamed of." Randy's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Vanessa, that's incredible." "Are you serious?" Elias asked, his voice cracking with emotion. "Completely serious. I've already looked into it. I can carry your baby, and you can finally be parents." Stella was crying now, reaching across the table to grab Vanessa's hands. "You beautiful, generous girl. This is a miracle." I sat there, watching my husband's family celebrate this grand gesture, feeling like a ghost at my own funeral. Nobody asked what I thought. Nobody looked at me for my reaction. "Poppy?" Elias finally turned to me. "Can you believe it?" It's amazing," I managed, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. But as Vanessa smiled at me across the table, I caught something in her expression, something that made my blood run cold. Later, as I helped clear the dishes, I saw Vanessa's phone light up on the counter. The text preview was from Stella. "Perfect timing, honey." Vanessa's response made my hands freeze on the plates. She'll never see this coming. 3 weeks later, I stood in the corner of Stella's living room, watching 20 women coo over Vanessa like she was the Virgin Mary herself. Pink and blue balloons bobbed from every surface, and a banner reading, "Baby Butler coming soon," stretched across the mantel. "Isn't she glowing?" one of Stella's friends gushed, snapping another photo of Vanessa opening gifts. Vanessa wasn't even pregnant yet. The embryo transfer was scheduled for next month, but apparently that didn't stop Stella from throwing a pre-pregnancy celebration party. "Look at this adorable onesie." Vanessa held up a tiny outfit that read, "Mommy's Little Miracle." The crowd erupted in appreciative murmurs. I sipped my sparkling water and tried to smile. Nobody had asked me to help plan this party. Nobody had asked if I wanted to be involved at all. "Poppy!" Stella's voice cut through the chatter. "Come take a picture with our surrogate." Our surrogate, like Vanessa was a shared family pet. I walked over and stood beside Vanessa, who immediately wrapped her arm around my waist and pulled me close. The camera flashed. "This is so exciting," whispered Mrs. Patterson from down the street. "Vanessa is such a saint for doing this." "We're so blessed," I replied automatically. After the guests left, I helped clean up while Vanessa lounged on the couch, her hands dramatically placed on her still flat stomach. "I can already feel the connection," she announced to no one in particular. "It's like the baby is calling to me." Elias sat beside her, his face soft with wonder. "Really?" "Oh, yes. I think it's going to be a boy. I can just sense it." Randy nodded approvingly from his recliner. "Butler men are strong. Takes after his grandfather." "And his aunt," Stella added, beaming at Vanessa. I loaded another stack of plates into the dishwasher, the clatter masking my frustrated sigh. "Poppy, you're being awfully quiet," Vanessa called out. "Aren't you excited?" "Of course I am." "You don't sound excited." All eyes turned to me. I forced a smile. "I'm just processing everything. It's a lot." "Well, you better start processing faster," Stella said with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "This baby will be here before you know it." The next morning, I sat across from Dr. Gardner in her office, the same office where I'd received so much bad news over the years. But today felt different. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her kind eyes studying my face. "I'm fine." "Poppy." I looked down at my hands. "It's complicated." "Surrogacy often is. Have you reviewed the contract thoroughly?" Elias's family lawyer handled everything. Jacob something. He said it was all standard. Dr. Gardner leaned forward. "I'd like to suggest you have your own attorney review it, just to be safe." "Why? Is there something wrong?" "Not wrong, necessarily. But in my experience, it's always wise to have independent legal counsel when family dynamics are complex." I thought about Vanessa's text message, the one I couldn't get out of my head. "Dr. Gardner, can I ask you something?" "Of course. If something went wrong, hypothetically, what kind of protections do I have?" She was quiet for a moment. "That depends entirely on what's in your contract. But Poppy, if you're having doubts about this arrangement, now is the time to address them." "I'm not having doubts. I just want to understand my options." "I can recommend an excellent attorney, someone who specializes in reproductive law." I nodded, filing that information away. That afternoon, I found Vanessa in our kitchen, going through our refrigerator like she lived there. "Oh, good, you're home," she said without looking up. "I was hoping to talk to you about the nursery." "The nursery? Well, obviously the baby will need a room here and at my place, for when I'm babysitting." "Babysitting?" She turned to face me, her expression innocent. "I mean, I'll want to spend lots of time with him. I am carrying him after all." "Right. I was thinking we could do a jungle theme, lions and elephants, very masculine. We don't even know if it's a boy yet. Trust me, it's a boy. I can feel it." She patted her stomach again. A mother knows these things. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is attorney Sarah Mitchell. Dr. Gardner gave me your information. Can we meet this week?" I looked up to find Vanessa watching me intently. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just work stuff. You know, Poppy, I hope you're not planning to be one of those helicopter mothers. The baby needs space to bond with his whole family." "Of course." She smiled, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Good, because we're all in this together, right?" "Right." But as she walked away, I heard her phone buzz. She glanced at it and smirked before typing back quickly. I waited until she left, then called the number Dr. Gardner had given me. Sarah Mitchell's office. "Hi, this is Poppy Butler. I need to schedule a consultation about a surrogacy contract. How soon can you come in?" I looked toward the front door where Vanessa had just left. "How about tomorrow?" 9 months later, I paced the hospital waiting room while Vanessa's screams echoed down the hallway. Elias had been in the delivery room for 3 hours. I'd been relegated to the chairs outside like a distant relative. "She's doing so well," Stella gushed to Randy, clutching his arm. "Our brave girl." "The Butler genes are strong," Randy replied, puffing out his chest. "That baby's going to be a fighter." I checked my phone for the 100th time. Still nothing from Elias. "Mrs. Butler?" A nurse appeared in scrubs. "The baby's here. Healthy boy, 8 pounds, 2 ounces. Stella burst into tears. "A grandson! Randy, we have a grandson!" "Can I see him?" I asked, standing up. The nurse looked confused. "Are you family?" "I'm the mother," I said quietly. "Oh." She glanced at Stella, who was already pushing past her toward the delivery room. "Let me check with the patient." I followed behind Randy and Stella, my heart hammering. After 5 years of needles and hormones and disappointment, my baby was finally here. The delivery room was chaos. Vanessa lay propped up in bed, sweaty and exhausted but glowing with triumph. Elias stood beside her, tears streaming down his face as he held a tiny bundle wrapped in blue. "He's perfect," Elias whispered. "Absolutely perfect." "Let me hold my grandson," Stella demanded, reaching for the baby. Elias carefully transferred the bundle to his mother's arms. She cooed and rocked, her face soft with wonder. "Look at those little fingers," Randy said, leaning over his wife's shoulder. "He's got the butler nose." I stood frozen in the doorway, watching my family bond with my child while I remained invisible. "Poppy," Vanessa called out weakly, "come meet your son." I approached the bed slowly. Stella reluctantly handed me the baby, and for the first time in 9 months, I held him. He was warm and solid and real, his tiny face scrunched up like he was concentrating on something important. "Hello, little one," I whispered. "His name is Milo," Vanessa announced. "Milo Butler." I looked up sharply. We hadn't decided on a name yet. "Well, I decided while I was in labor. It just came to me." She smiled serenely. "Milo Vanessa Butler." "Vanessa?" Elias questioned. "For his middle name, after the woman who gave him life." Stella clapped her hands together. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Milo Vanessa Butler." I stared down at the baby, at Milo, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. "Actually," I said carefully, "I was thinking we could name him Poppy." Vanessa's voice was firm, despite her exhaustion. "I carried him for 9 months. I think I've earned the right to name him." The room fell silent. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my response. "Of course," I said finally. "Milo is perfect." But as I tried to hand the baby back to Vanessa, she shook her head. "Actually, I want to hold him a little longer." She took Milo from my arms and cradled him against her chest. "Mommy missed you," she cooed. "Mommy?" I repeated. Vanessa looked up at me, her eyes bright and defiant. "Well, I am his mother. I carried him. I gave birth to him. I named him." "Vanessa," Elias said uncertainly. "No, it's true." She sat up straighter in the bed, her voice growing stronger. "Look at him. He knows me. He's been with me for 9 months." "But the contract," I started. "The contract was just paperwork," Stella interrupted. "This is about what's best for the baby." "What's best for Milo," Vanessa corrected, "is staying with his real mother." The words hit me like a physical blow. "His real mother?" "I'm keeping him," Vanessa announced, her voice ringing with certainty. "I can't give him up. I won't." The room erupted. Randy started talking about family bonds. Stella was crying about miracles, and Elias just stood there looking shell-shocked. "You can't do this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can, and I am." Vanessa's grip on Milo tightened. "I'm his mother now." "Elias," I turned to my husband desperately, "say something." He looked between me and Vanessa, his face torn. Maybe we should think about this. If Vanessa has bonded with the baby, if she's bonded with him, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "He's my son." "Biologically, yes," Stella said coldly. "But Vanessa carried him. She's the one who sacrificed her body for 9 months. You should be grateful you're even here at all," Randy added. "Most surrogates don't let the biological parents in the delivery room." I looked around at these people, my husband, my in-laws, my sister-in-law, and realized they had planned this. All of it. "I need some air," I managed, backing toward the door. "Poppy, wait!" Elias called after me, but I was already running down the hallway, past the nurse's station, past the other new families celebrating their joy. I burst through the exit doors into the parking garage and leaned against a concrete pillar, gasping for breath. My phone buzzed, a text from Thea. "How's the baby? Send pictures." I stared at the message, then typed back, "They're keeping him." My phone immediately rang. "What do you mean they're keeping him?" Thea's voice was sharp with concern. "Vanessa says she's his mother now. Elias is backing her up." "Poppy, that's not legal. You have a contract." I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Apparently, contracts are just paperwork. "Where are you?" "Hospital parking garage." "Stay there. I'm coming to get you." As I waited for Thea, I thought about Vanessa's text from months ago. She'll never see this coming. They were wrong about one thing, though. They had no idea what I knew. 2 months earlier, I sat in Sarah Mitchell's office while she spread the surrogacy contract across her mahogany desk like evidence at a crime scene. "This is interesting," she murmured, flipping through pages. "Very interesting." "What do you mean?" "Your family's attorney, Jacob, he's not exactly known for his attention to detail." She pointed to a section near the back. "See this clause here? About inheritance and parental rights?" I leaned forward. "What about it?" "It's buried in the legal jargon, but essentially it states that any attempt to breach the intended parent's custody rights or manipulate the surrogacy arrangement will result in forfeiture of all family assets tied to the Butler estate." "I don't understand." Sarah smiled grimly. "Your husband's family has significant wealth, correct? Trust funds, property, investments?" "Yes, but what does that have to do with—" "Everything's tied together. If they try to keep your baby or interfere with your parental rights, they lose it all. The entire inheritance goes to you and your child." I stared at the contract. "Jacob signed off on this?" "He did. Probably thought it was standard boilerplate language." Sarah's eyes gleamed. "It's not." "Did you write this clause?" "Let's just say I had some input during the revision process. Dr. Gardner and I have worked together before on complicated cases. Now, standing in the hospital parking garage with Thea's arm around my shoulders, I remembered that conversation clearly. "We need to go back up there," Thea said firmly. "You can't let them steal your baby." "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is. You have legal rights." I pulled out my phone and called Sarah Mitchell. "Poppy, I heard about the delivery. Congratulations." "They're keeping him. Vanessa says she's his mother now." "I see. Are you at the hospital?" "Yes." "Perfect. I need you to do something for me. Can you get back into that room?" "I think so." "Good. I'm sending someone to meet you there, a process server. But first I need you to get a DNA sample from the baby." "What? Why?" "Trust me. Dr. Gardner will help you. She's expecting your call." 20 minutes later, Dr. Gardner appeared in the hospital lobby carrying a small medical kit. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I've been better." Sarah explained what we need to do. "Are you ready?" We took the elevator back to the maternity ward. Through the window of Vanessa's room, I could see the whole family still gathered around the bed, passing Milo between them like a trophy. "Just act natural," Dr. Gardner whispered. "Ask to hold him one more time." I knocked softly and entered. Vanessa was nursing Milo, her face serene and Madonna-like. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "Wonderful. He's such a good baby." She looked up at Dr. Gardner. "Is everything okay?" "Just routine follow-up," Dr. Gardner said smoothly. "Making sure everyone's healthy." "I was wondering," I said carefully, "if I could hold him again, just for a few minutes?" Vanessa hesitated, then reluctantly handed Milo over. "Don't wake him up." I cradled my son, memorizing his tiny features, while Dr. Gardner pretended to check his vitals. With practiced efficiency, she swabbed the inside of his cheek with a cotton swab and slipped it into a small vial. "Everything looks perfect," she announced. "What was that swab for?" Stella asked suspiciously. "Standard newborn screening, hospital policy." I handed Milo back to Vanessa, who immediately clutched him protectively. "We should let you rest," I said. As we left the room, I heard Vanessa whisper to Stella, "Something's not right. She's acting weird." "Don't worry, sweetheart," Stella replied. What can she possibly do? Dr. Gardner and I walked to the elevator in silence. Once the doors closed, she turned to me. The DNA results will take 48 hours, but Poppy, I need to ask you something. What? Are you absolutely certain you want to go through with this? Once we start down this path, there's no going back. I thought about Vanessa's smug smile, about Elias standing there saying nothing while they stole my child, about 5 years of being treated like an outsider in my own family. I'm certain. Good, because Sarah's process server is already in the building. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Papers are ready. Give me the word. I looked back toward Vanessa's room, where I could hear laughter and celebration. They thought they'd won. They thought I was broken, defeated, grateful just to be included. I typed back, Not yet. Let them get comfortable first. What are you waiting for? Dr. Gardner asked. The right moment. They're planning to have Vanessa legally adopt Milo. I want to wait until they're all gathered together thinking they've won. That's risky. What if they try to leave the state? They won't. They're too arrogant. They want to parade their victory around town first. Dr. Gardner studied my face. You've thought this through. I've had months to think it through. And you're prepared for the consequences? This will destroy your marriage, your relationship with Elias's family. I looked down at the DNA vial in her hand, proof that Milo was mine, not Vanessa's. They destroyed those things the moment they decided to steal my son. All right then, Dr. Gardner pocketed the vial. I'll rush the DNA results. 48 hours. As she walked away, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Elias's number. He'd called 6 times since I left the room, but I hadn't answered. Instead, I typed a simple message. Congratulations on your new nephew. Then I turned off my phone and walked out of the hospital. They had no idea what was coming. What? The next morning, I sat in my empty house, staring at the nursery I'd spent months preparing. The crib stood ready, the mobile hung motionless, and tiny clothes waited in drawers that would never be opened. Elias had texted me 12 times overnight. I deleted them all without reading. My phone rang. Thea. Have you eaten anything? She asked without preamble. I'm not hungry. I'm bringing coffee and bagels. Don't argue. 20 minutes later, she was at my kitchen table, spreading cream cheese while I pushed food around my plate. You need to fight this, she said. You can't just let them win. I'm not letting them win. Then what's your plan? Because sitting here feeling sorry for yourself isn't going to get your baby back. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Elias stood on my porch, looking like he hadn't slept either. Can we talk? He asked. I don't think there's anything to say. Please, Poppy. Just 5 minutes. I let him in, but didn't offer him coffee. He sat across from me at the kitchen table while Thea glared at him from the counter. Vanessa's struggling, he began. She's having second thoughts about keeping Milo. Really? She's scared. She never expected to feel so attached. Attached to my son. Our son, he corrected. But maybe we can work something out. Joint custody or joint custody? I set down my coffee cup harder than necessary. Of my own child? It's complicated, Poppy. She carried him for 9 months. Because she volunteered to be a surrogate, not because she wanted to become a mother. Elias rubbed his face. My parents think it might be best for everyone if we just accept the situation. Accept it? Vanessa's good with kids. She's young, healthy, financially stable. Get out. Poppy, get out of my house. Thea stepped forward. You heard her. After Elias left, I called Sarah Mitchell. The DNA results came back, she said immediately. 99.9% match. Milo is definitely your biological child. And Vanessa? 0%. She's not related to him at all. I closed my eyes. So what now? Now we move. I've prepared all the paperwork, custody order, restraining order if necessary, and the inheritance documentation. When do you want to serve them? They're having a family meeting tonight to discuss Vanessa's adoption plans. Perfect. Maximum impact. That afternoon, I drove to Randy and Stella's house. Through the front window, I could see them all gathered in the living room. Vanessa sat in the center of the couch, holding Milo while everyone fawned over them. I parked across the street and called Sarah. "They're all here," I said. "Process server is 5 minutes away. Are you ready?" "I'm ready." "Poppy, once this starts, there's no stopping it. They're going to lose everything. The house, the trust funds, the business investments, all of it goes to you and Milo." "Good. And your marriage to Elias is already over." I watched through the window as Jacob, the family lawyer, arrived with a briefcase. He shook hands with Randy and joined the circle around Vanessa and Milo. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Process server here. White sedan across from you." I looked in my rearview mirror and saw a woman in a business suit getting out of a car carrying a manila envelope. "Go," I texted back. I watched her walk up to the front door and ring the bell. Randy answered, his face confused as she handed him the papers. "Randy Butler?" Her voice carried across the quiet street. "You're being served." Even from my car, I could hear the explosion of voices from inside the house. Randy's booming shout, Stella's shriek, Vanessa's panicked questions. My phone rang. Elias. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I got my son back." "Poppy, you can't do this. You're destroying our family." "Your family destroyed itself when they decided to steal my child. The inheritance, my parents could lose everything. They should have thought of that before they betrayed me. Please, we can work this out. Come inside. Let's talk." I hung up and drove away. An hour later, I was back at Sarah's office while she explained the legal documents. "The custody order is immediate," she said. "Milo comes home with you tonight. The inheritance transfer will take a few weeks to process, but it's ironclad." "What about Vanessa?" "She has no legal standing. The surrogacy contract is clear. She was a gestational carrier, not a mother. The DNA results prove Milo isn't biologically hers." "And if they try to fight it?" "They can try, but they signed the contract. They accepted the terms. Their own lawyer witnessed it." My phone had been buzzing constantly. Texts from Elias, from Stella, even from Randy. I turned it off. "There's something else," Sarah said. "Vanessa's been calling reporters. She wants to tell her side of the story." "Let her." "She's claiming you manipulated the contract, that you tricked them." "Did I?" Sarah smiled. "You protected yourself and your child. That's not manipulation. That's smart planning." "When do I get Milo?" "Sheriff's deputy is meeting us at the house in an hour. You'll have your son back tonight." As we drove to Randy and Stella's house, I thought about Vanessa's text from months ago. "She'll never see this coming." She was right. They never saw it coming. But neither did they. The sheriff's deputy knocked on Randy and Stella's front door at exactly 7 p.m. I stood behind him, my hands shaking as I clutched the car seat I'd brought. Randy opened the door, his face red with fury. "This is harassment." "Sir, I have a court order for the immediate return of the minor child to his legal guardian." Deputy Martinez held up the papers. "Is the child on the premises?" "This is insane," Stella's voice carried from inside. "That baby belongs with his mother." "Ma'am, according to these documents, Mrs. Poppy Butler is the legal mother." I stepped forward. "I'm here for my son." Randy blocked the doorway. "You're making a huge mistake, Poppy. We can fight this." "You can try." Deputy Martinez cleared his throat. "Sir, I need you to step aside. This is a legal order." The living room was chaos. Vanessa sat on the couch clutching Milo, tears streaming down her face. Stella paced behind her like a caged animal. Elias stood by the window, his face pale. Jacob sat at the dining table, frantically shuffling through papers. "There has to be something," Jacob muttered. "Some loophole, some clause we missed." "You missed a lot of things," Sarah said, entering behind me, "starting with your client's attempt to commit fraud." "Fraud?" Randy sputtered. We're not committing fraud. Attempting to steal a child through manipulation of a surrogacy agreement? That's fraud. Conspiracy, too. Vanessa looked up from Milo, her eyes wild. I carried him for 9 months. I gave birth to him. I'm his mother. Biologically, you're not related to him at all, Sarah replied calmly. We have DNA evidence. That's impossible. Sarah pulled out a folder. 99.9% match between Poppy and the child. 0% match between you and the child. Would you like to see the lab results? The room fell silent except for Milo's soft whimpering. How? Stella whispered. How what? I asked. How is he not Vanessa's biological child? She carried him. She was a surrogate, I said slowly, like I was explaining to a child. The embryo was created from my egg and Elias's sperm. That's how surrogacy works. Vanessa's face crumpled, but I felt so connected to him. I thought maybe... You thought what? Elias asked. I thought maybe the doctors made a mistake, that somehow it was my egg they used. Jacob looked up from his papers. Wait, you thought the child was biologically yours? I hoped, Vanessa whispered. I prayed for it. Jesus Christ, Randy muttered. You planned this whole thing thinking the baby was actually yours? I wanted him to be mine, Vanessa sobbed. I wanted to be a mother so badly. Stella sank into a chair. Vanessa, honey, you knew the arrangement. You knew it was Poppy's egg. I know what I signed, but I thought God might give me a miracle. Deputy Martinez stepped forward. Ma'am, I need you to hand over the child. No. Vanessa clutched Milo tighter. He needs me. I'm the only mother he's ever known. He's 3 days old, I said, and I'm his actual mother. You don't understand. We have a bond, a connection. Vanessa, Elias said gently, you have to give him back. You're supposed to be on my side, she snapped. You said you understood. I said I understood you were confused. I didn't say I supported kidnapping. It's not kidnapping if I'm his mother. But you're not, Sarah interjected. Legally, biologically, or otherwise, you were a gestational carrier, nothing more. Vanessa stood up, still holding Milo. I won't let you take him. Deputy Martinez moved closer. Ma'am, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Vanessa, please, I said. Just give me my son. Your son? She laughed bitterly. You couldn't even carry him yourself. You needed me to do it for you. Because I have fertility issues. That doesn't make me less of a mother. Doesn't it? What kind of mother can't even get pregnant? The words hit like a slap. I felt my face burn with shame and anger. The kind who fights for her child, I said quietly. The kind who doesn't give up. I fought for him too. I carried him when you couldn't. You volunteered to carry him, for us, for our family. Well, I changed my mind. You can't change your mind about someone else's baby. Vanessa looked around the room desperately. Mom, Dad, say something. Help me. Randy and Stella exchanged glances. Finally, Randy spoke. Sweetheart, if the DNA says he's not yours, I don't care what the DNA says. I carried him. I love him. Love doesn't make you his mother, I said. Then what does? Biology? A piece of paper? Yes, Sarah answered. Exactly that. Biology and legal documentation, both of which prove Poppy is this child's mother. Vanessa looked at Milo in her arms, then at me. For a moment, I thought she might hand him over. Instead, she bolted for the back door. Stop her! Deputy Martinez shouted. But Vanessa was already running across the backyard, clutching my son. Deputy Martinez was faster than Vanessa expected. He caught up to her at the garden gate, where she stood trapped between the fence and his approaching figure. Ma'am, stop right there, he commanded. You're holding that child too tightly. Vanessa spun around. Milo pressed against her chest. Stay back! You're scaring him! Vanessa, please! Elias called from the porch. You're going to hurt him. I would never hurt him. I'm protecting him. I stepped forward slowly, my hands visible. From what? From his mother? From people who don't understand what we have. What you have is a 3-day-old baby who needs to be fed and changed, not dragged around a backyard in the dark. Deputy Martinez spoke into his radio. Need backup at 1247 Maple Street. Suspect fleeing with infant. Suspect? Vanessa's voice cracked. I'm not a suspect. I'm his mother. The DNA test says otherwise, Sarah called from the porch. DNA tests can be wrong. Not when they show 0% biological relationship, I said. Vanessa, you know he's not yours. You've always known. She looked down at Milo, who was starting to cry. But I carried him. I felt him move inside me. I talk to him every day. And I'm grateful for that, but carrying him doesn't make him yours. Then what was the point? She screamed. What was the point of any of this if I just have to give him up? The point was to help us have a family. Help you? What about helping me? What about what I wanted? Stella stepped off the porch. Sweetheart, what you wanted was to do something beautiful for your brother and sister-in-law. No, what I wanted was to be important, to be needed, to be the hero for once instead of the screw-up. Randy joined his wife. You're not a screw-up, honey. Yes, I am. I'm 31 years old with no career, no husband, no children. Poppy has everything I want. I don't have everything, I said quietly. I couldn't have children without help. I needed you. You needed my body. You didn't need me. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you invited me somewhere that wasn't family-related? I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't. See? You used me, just like everyone else. Vanessa, Elias said, that's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? She turned to face him. You promised me I'd always be part of his life. You said I'd be his favorite aunt. You still can be. How? When Poppy hates me? When she takes him away and never lets me see him again? I don't hate you, I said. Yes, you do, and you should. I tried to steal your baby. Milo's cries were getting louder. Vanessa looked down at him, her face crumbling. He's hungry, she whispered. Then let me feed him, I said gently. I don't know how to make a bottle. I do. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Will you let me visit him sometimes? Vanessa, please. I know I messed up. I know I was wrong, but I love him. I looked at this broken woman holding my son, and for the first time in months, I saw her clearly. Not as the villain in my story, but as someone who was lost and desperate and making terrible choices. We'll figure something out, I said. You promise? I promise we'll talk about it after you give him back. Vanessa nodded slowly and walked toward me. With shaking hands, she placed Milo in my arms. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I held my son for the second time, feeling his weight settle against my chest. He stopped crying immediately, as if he recognized where he belonged. It's okay, I said to Vanessa. It's going to be okay. But as I looked around at the faces surrounding me, Elias's guilty relief, Randy and Stella's devastation, Vanessa's heartbreak, I realized nothing would ever be okay again. There's still the matter of the inheritance, Sarah said quietly. Randy's face went white. What inheritance? The clause in the surrogacy contract. Any attempt to breach custody rights results in forfeiture of all family assets to the biological parents. That's impossible, Jacob sputtered. I would never have agreed to that. Sarah pulled out a copy of the contract. Page 15, Section 12, subsection C. Your signature is right there. Jacob grabbed the papers and read frantically. His face went gray. Oh, God, he whispered. Oh, God, what have I done? You signed a contract without reading it, Sarah said, and now your clients have lost everything. Stella sank to her knees in the grass. Everything? The house, the business, the trust funds, all of it goes to Poppy and Milo. This can't be happening, Randy said. It's already happened, I replied, holding my son closer. Poppy, Elias stepped toward me. Please, we can work something out. No, I said firmly, we can't. They're my parents. And this is my son. Your family made their choice when they tried to steal him. I turned to Deputy Martinez. Can you escort me to my car? As I walked away from the house, carrying Milo to safety, I heard Vanessa call out behind me. His middle name is Vanessa. Don't forget his middle name is Vanessa. I didn't turn around. I sat in my living room feeding Milo his bottle while Thea unpacked groceries in the kitchen. The house felt different now, fuller somehow, despite being just the two of us. The reporters are still calling, Thea said, holding up my silenced phone. Channel 7 wants an exclusive interview. I'm not interested. Vanessa gave her interview yesterday. Did you see it? I shook my head. I'd avoided all news coverage since bringing Milo home. She's claiming you manipulated the contract to steal the family fortune. Says you planned this from the beginning. Let her say whatever she wants. Thea sat beside me on the couch. Aren't you curious what people are saying? No. But she told me anyway. Most people think she's delusional. The DNA evidence is pretty damning. Hard to claim you're someone's mother when you share zero genetic material. Milo finished his bottle and I lifted him to my shoulder, patting his back gently. He was gaining weight, sleeping better, becoming more alert each day. Sarah called, Thea continued. The inheritance transfer is complete. You officially own everything now. I know. That's a lot of money, Poppy. Generational wealth. It's Milo's inheritance. I'm just managing it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thea glanced at it. It's from Elias, she said. He wants to see Milo. He can see him during supervised visitation. Sarah's setting it up. He's still his father. Biologically, yes. The doorbell rang. Through the window I could see Dr. Gardner on my porch, carrying a small gift bag. How's our little fighter doing? She asked when I let her in. Growing like a weed. She examined Milo with practiced hands, checking his reflexes and listening to his heart. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Dr. Gardner, can I ask you something? Of course. Did you know? When you suggested I get my own lawyer, did you know what would happen? She was quiet for a moment. I knew families could be complicated. I knew you needed protection. But the contract clause, Sarah's very good at what she does, and you deserve to have someone fighting for you. After she left, I put Milo down for his nap and found myself standing in Randy and Stella's old bedroom, now my bedroom. Their belongings were gone, packed up, and moved to the small apartment they'd rented across town. The house felt too big, too empty. But it was mine now. Ours. My phone rang. Sarah. I have news, she said. Vanessa's trying to file a lawsuit, claims emotional distress and breach of promise. Can she do that? She can try, but she has no standing. The contract was clear, the DNA evidence is conclusive, and she admitted on television that she planned to keep your child. What about the others? Randy and Stella are broke, but not stupid. They won't risk what little they have left on a frivolous lawsuit. And Elias, she paused. Elias wants to talk. I don't want to talk to him. He's threatening to fight for custody. On what grounds? He's claiming you're an unfit mother, says you manipulated his family and destroyed their lives out of spite. I looked toward the nursery where Milo slept peacefully. And what did you tell him? That any judge who sees the evidence will laugh him out of court. You're the biological mother, you have stable housing, substantial financial resources, and no criminal record. He's the one who stood by while his family tried to steal your child. Good. Poppy, there's something else. The media attention is getting intense. People are taking sides. What do you mean? Some are calling you a hero, a woman who fought back against a manipulative family. Others are saying you're a gold digger who destroyed innocent people for money. What do you think? I think you're a mother who protected her child. Everything else is just noise. That evening, I sat in the nursery rocking Milo while he slept. The mobile above his crib played a soft lullaby, and moonlight streamed through the window. Thea appeared in the doorway. You okay? I keep thinking about what Vanessa said, about me not calling her, not including her. You feel guilty. Maybe I do. She tried to steal your baby, Poppy. I know, but she was right about some things. I did use her. I did take her for granted. That doesn't justify what she did. No, it doesn't. I looked down at Milo's sleeping face, so peaceful and perfect. Do you think I'm a terrible person? For what? For destroying their lives, for taking everything. Thea sat on the ottoman beside the rocking chair. They destroyed their own lives when they decided to betray you. You just made sure they faced consequences. It doesn't feel like justice. It feels like revenge. Maybe it's both. And maybe that makes me just as bad as them. No, Thea said firmly. It makes you human. It makes you a mother who fought for her child. Milo stirred in my arms, making soft baby sounds. I kissed his forehead and whispered, You're safe now. You're home. Outside, a car drove slowly past the house. I recognized Elias's sedan, the way he always drove when he was thinking. He'd been doing that a lot lately, driving by but never stopping. He can look all he wants, I murmured to Milo. But you're mine. You were always mine. The car disappeared around the corner, and I continued rocking my son in the quiet darkness, finally at peace.
I was 18 when my parents told me they'd spent my college fund on my brother's investment opportunity. Just like that. $23,000. Gone. My name is Ellie, and I'm about to tell you a story that'll make your blood boil. Or maybe you'll think I'm a monster by the end. I honestly don't know anymore. Ellie, sweetheart, sit down, Mom said that Tuesday evening, her voice doing that fake sweet thing it did when she was about to deliver bad news. Dad was already at the kitchen table, shuffling papers like they were legal documents instead of bank statements. We need to discuss your college situation, Dad said without looking up. I'd been accepted to State University for environmental science, not Harvard, not Yale, but a solid program that would let me study renewable energy systems. I'd been dreaming about it for months. What about it? I asked, sliding into the chair across from them. Well, Leon's got this incredible opportunity. Mom started, her eyes lighting up the way they always did when she talked about my older brother. His firm wants to fast-track him into their investment division, but he needs capital to prove himself. My stomach dropped. What kind of capital? Dad finally looked at me. The thing is, Ellie, Leon's got real potential here. This could set him up for life, make him a millionaire before he's 30. And my college fund? Would be better invested in Leon's future, Dad said matter-of-factly. Environmental science? Come on, honey. What kind of career is that? You'll be lucky to make $40,000 a year hugging trees. I felt like I'd been slapped. Are you serious right now? Leon's already making 6 figures, Mom chimed in. And this investment opportunity, Ellie, it's a sure thing. He'll pay back the fund with interest within 2 years. You can take a gap year, work, save up some money of your own. A gap year? My voice cracked. Mom, I got into their honors program. If I defer, I lose my spot. Dad waved his hand dismissively. There'll be other programs, other schools, but Leon's opportunity is now. I looked between them, searching for any sign that this was some sick joke. But Mom was nodding along with Dad, and they both had that look, the one that said the decision was already made. Where's Leon now? I asked. At Alexis's place, Mom said. Planning their engagement party? Did we tell you? He proposed last month? Of course he did. Golden boy Leon, with his finance degree and his socialite girlfriend and his expensive suits. Leon, who'd never worked a day in his life that wasn't handed to him on a silver platter. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You're taking my college fund, money that's been saved for me since I was born, and giving it to Leon so he can play stock market? It's not playing, Dad snapped. It's investing. Something you'd understand if you weren't so focused on this environmental nonsense. Nonsense? I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Dad, climate change is the biggest crisis of our generation. Renewable energy is going to be $1 trillion industry. Dad laughed, actually laughed. Ellie, sweetheart, leave the business talk to people who understand it. Leon's got an MBA from Wharton. You want to study what? Solar panels? Advanced photovoltaic systems, wind energy optimization, battery storage technology. Exactly. Mom interrupted. All very nice hobbies, but Leon's talking about real money, real success. I felt something cold settle in my chest, something that would stay there for the next 10 years. What if I refuse? I asked. What if I say no? Dad's expression hardened. It's not your money yet, Ellie. It's our money, saved for your education. And we've decided this is a better educational investment. For Leon. For the family, Mom corrected. When Leon succeeds, we all succeed. That's how families work. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table and storm out. Instead, I asked, and if his investment fails? It won't, Dad said with absolute certainty. Leon's got a gift for this stuff, always has. Remember when he was 12 and he bought those baseball cards, sold them for 3 times what he paid? He was 12, Dad. This is $23,000. Which will be 50,000 in 2 years, Mom said brightly. Maybe more. Then you'll have even more for college. I looked at them. Really looked at them. At the way Mom's eyes sparkled when she talked about Leon's success. At the way Dad sat straighter when he mentioned Leon's MBA. At the way neither of them could meet my eyes when they talked about my future. Fine, I said quietly. They both blinked, clearly expecting more of a fight. Fine? Dad repeated. Fine. Give Leon the money. I'll figure something else out. Mom reached across the table and patted my hand. Oh, sweetheart, you're being so mature about this. Leon will be so grateful. We all will. I pulled my hand away. I'm going to my room. Dinner's in an hour, Mom called after me. I didn't answer. I was already planning. Already calculating. Already deciding that if my family wanted to bet everything on Leon, they could live with the consequences. They had no idea what I was capable of, but one day, they'd find out. 3 months later, I was working my 3rd job of the week when Camila found me scrubbing tables at Murphy's Diner at 11 p.m. Jesus, Ellie, she said, sliding into the booth I'd just cleaned. You look like death. Thanks for the pep talk, I muttered, spraying down the next table. What are you doing here? Looking for you. You missed our study group again. Camila had been my best friend since sophomore year of high school. While I was getting my college fund stolen, she was getting ready for her freshman year at State, the same program I should have been in. I can't afford to miss shifts, I said, not looking at her. Rent's due in 2 days. Ellie, you're killing yourself. You work at the campus bookstore from 6 to noon, the tutoring center from 1 to 5, and here until midnight. When do you sleep? I don't. I threw the rag into my cleaning bucket harder than necessary. Sleep doesn't pay for community college classes. That was my compromise. Community college for 2 years, then transfer to State if I could save enough. It wasn't the honors program, but it was something. Your parents still haven't. Nope, I cut her off. Last I heard, Leon's investment was showing promising returns. Mom called last week to tell me about his new BMW. Camila's face darkened. He bought a BMW with your college money? Apparently it's a business expense. Gotta look successful to be successful, right? The diner's bell chimed, and my manager Jerry stuck his head out of the kitchen. Ellie, you got a customer. I turned to see a guy about my age in an expensive jacket, looking around like he'd never seen a diner before. Great, probably some college kid slumming it after the bars closed. I'll be right there. I called to Jerry, then looked back at Camila. I gotta work. I'll wait, she said. We need to talk. I walked over to the guy in the jacket. Up close, he looked nervous, fidgeting with his phone. What can I get you? I asked. Just coffee, black. He glanced around again. Actually, are you Ellie Williams? My blood went cold. Who's asking? I'm Marcus. I work with your brother Leon at Henderson and Associates. Of course, one of Leon's finance bros. probably here to gloat about their success while I served him coffee at midnight. Let me guess, I said, grabbing the coffee pot. Leon sent you to check on his poor little sister? Marcia shifted uncomfortably. Not exactly. Look, can we talk? Privately? I glanced back at Camila, who was watching us with interest. Jerry was in the kitchen and we were the only customers. Talk about what? Marcus lowered his voice. About Leon's investment strategy, the one your parents funded. I poured his coffee, my hand steady, despite my racing heart. What about it? It's not going well, he said quietly. Like, really not going well. I set the coffee pot down. Define not going well. He's down 60%, maybe more. The market's been brutal, and Leon, he's been making some risky plays, doubling down when he should have cut losses. My chest tightened. How risky? He borrowed against his initial investment, used margin trading. If this keeps going south, Marcus ran his hand through his hair. Look, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I heard about the college fund thing. That's messed up. Why are you telling me? Because Leon's been bragging about how his family believes in him, how they invested in his future. But if he loses everything, Marcus met my eyes. Your parents don't know, do they? About how bad it is? I thought about Mom's phone call last week, gushing about Leon's new car and his promotion prospects. No, I said. They don't know. Marcus nodded grimly. He's been keeping up appearances, the BMW, the expensive dinners with Alexis, but it's all on credit now. If his investments don't turn around in the next few months, he'll lose everything, including your college fund. I stared at him for a long moment. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. I'd known this would happen, but mostly I just felt tired. Thanks for telling me, I said finally. Marcus left a 20 for a $3 coffee and walked out without another word. I went back to Camila, who immediately grabbed my arm. What was that about? Leon's losing my college money, I said flatly. What? How do you know? I told her about Marcus, about the failed investments and the borrowed money. Camila's eyes got wider with each detail. Ellie, you have to tell your parents. Why? So they can panic and blame me somehow? So they can ask me to get a fourth job to help bail out their golden boy? Because it's your money? Was my money, I corrected. Now it's just gone. Camila was quiet for a moment. Then she said, What are you going to do? I looked around the diner, at the cracked vinyl booths, the flickering fluorescent lights, the grease stains on my uniform. This was my life now. This was what believing in Leon had bought me. I'm going to keep working, I said. Keep studying, keep building something they can't take away from me. Ellie, I'm serious, Cam. I'm done depending on them, done hoping they'll see me as worth investing in. I picked up my cleaning supplies. From now on, I'm investing in myself. 2 weeks later, I was in the community college lab at 2 a.m. working on a project that would change everything. The professor had mentioned something about photovoltaic efficiency in passing, and I'd been obsessing over it ever since. I was running calculations on a new cell design when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Leon's doing so well. His boss is very impressed. We're so proud. I turned the phone face down and went back to my equations. They had no idea what I was working on. No idea that while they were celebrating Leon's fake success, I was on the verge of something real. But they would. Eventually, they'd find out exactly what their worthless daughter was capable of. The patent application was approved 6 months later. I never told them. 10 years later, I was sitting in my Honda Civic outside my parents' house, watching Leon pace back and forth through the living room window while talking on his phone. His gestures were getting more animated by the minute. I'd driven over for Sunday dinner, a tradition I'd somehow gotten roped back into after finishing my master's degree. To them, I was still struggling Ellie, the one who'd finally gotten her act together by landing a job at a small renewable energy consulting firm. What they didn't know was that I owned the firm, along with 3 others, and a portfolio worth more than Leon had ever dreamed of making. Ellie! Mom opened the door before I could knock. Perfect timing. Leon's just finishing up a business call. I followed her into the kitchen where she was pulling a roast out of the oven. The house smelled the same as it always had, vanilla candles and her signature pot roast. Some things never changed. How's work going, sweetheart? She asked, not really waiting for an answer. Leon's been telling us about this amazing new project he's heading up. Something about international markets. Sounds exciting. I said, grabbing plates from the cabinet. Same routine we'd done 100 times. Dad wandered in from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose. Ellie, good to see you. How's the tree hugging business? 10 years, and he still couldn't resist the dig. It's fine, Dad. Keeping busy. Well, that's good. Steady work is important. He said it like he was congratulating a child for coloring inside the lines. Leon finally came in from the living room, phone still pressed to his ear. No, I understand the timeline pressure, but we can make this work. Trust me. He held up a finger to us, mouthing, 1 more minute. Leon, dinner's ready, Mom called. I have to go, he said into the phone. We'll continue this tomorrow. Yes, I'm confident we can turn this around. He hung up and immediately put on his $1,000,000 smile. Sorry about that. Crisis management comes with the territory when you're handling this level of investment. How much are you managing now? I asked, genuinely curious. Let's just say it's more than most people see in a lifetime, Leon said, loosening his tie. The firm's really betting big on my division. Mom beamed. We're so proud. Aren't we proud, Robert? Absolutely, Dad said, clapping Leon on the shoulder. Always knew you had it in you, son. We sat down to eat, and the conversation followed its predictable pattern. Leon talked about his work, vaguely, with lots of important-sounding buzzwords. Mom and Dad hung on every word. I ate my pot roast and made appropriate noises. Speaking of investments, Leon said, cutting into his meat, Alexis and I are looking at houses in Westfield. You know, the new development near the country club. Those are beautiful homes, Mom gushed. So expensive, though. When you're in my position, you have to think about image, Leon explained. Clients want to see success. They want to know their money's in good hands. Makes sense, Dad agreed. You can't look like you're struggling when you're handling other people's fortunes. I nearly choked on my water. Other people's fortunes? Leon's managing portfolios for some very high net worth individuals, Dad said proudly. Isn't that right, son? Among other things, Leon said. It's a complex business, Ellie. Lots of moving parts. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, and I caught a flash of something. Worry? Panic? Cross his face before he flipped it over. Everything okay? I asked. Fine. Just the markets. They never sleep, you know? He forced another smile. Actually, speaking of business, I've been thinking about diversifying into some new sectors. Clean energy? Maybe. Ellie, you might have some insights there. This was new. Leon had never asked for my professional opinion on anything. What kind of insights? Well, you work in the field. What companies should I be watching? What technologies are about to break big? I studied his face. Why the sudden interest in renewable energy? It's the future, right? That's what you've always said. Maybe it's time I started listening to my little sister. Mom practically glowed. Oh, how wonderful. You two working together. Leon's phone buzzed again. This time he couldn't hide his flinch. You sure everything's okay? I pressed. Actually, he said, standing up abruptly, I should take this. It's international markets, different time zones. You know how it is. He stepped out onto the back porch, but I could see him through the glass door. His body language was tense, defensive. At one point, he ran his hand through his hair, something he only did when he was stressed. He works so hard, Mom said, watching him too. Sometimes I worry he's pushing himself too much. Success requires sacrifice, Dad said. Leon understands that. I excused myself to use the bathroom, but took a detour past the porch door. Leon was facing away from the house, but his voice carried. I understand the margin call, but I need more time. The positions will recover, I'm sure of it. No, I can't liquidate now. We'd lose everything. Margin call. I knew exactly what that meant. I slipped back to the dining room before he came inside. Sorry about that, Leon said, rejoining us. Where were we? You were asking Ellie about clean energy investments, Mom reminded him. Right. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, almost desperate. So, any recommendations? Companies that might be undervalued right now? I met his eyes across the table. Leon, are you asking me for investment advice? Just curious about your perspective. You've been in this field for years now. I have, I agreed. And my perspective is that renewable energy is a long-term play, not something you jump into if you need quick returns. Something flickered in his expression. What if someone hypothetically needed faster results? Then they shouldn't be investing in clean energy, I said simply. They should probably be looking at their risk management instead. Leon's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Mom, oblivious to the undercurrent, jumped in. Well, I think it's wonderful that you're both so successful in your fields, different paths, but both doing so well. I looked around the table, at my parents' proud faces, at Leon's barely concealed panic, at the house that represented everything they'd valued over me. Actually, I said, I should probably head home. Early day tomorrow. Of course, sweetheart, Mom said. Work hard, play hard, right? As I gathered my things, Leon caught my arm in the hallway. Ellie, about what I asked earlier. About investment advice? If you hear about any opportunities, anything solid, would you let me know? I looked at him for a long moment. My brother, the golden child, asking me for help. Sure, Leon, I said. I'll keep my ears open. But as I drove home, I wasn't thinking about helping him. I was thinking about timing, about patience, about waiting for exactly the right moment. It was coming soon. I could feel it. The call came at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, Mom's number flashing on my phone while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office. Ellie? Her voice was shaking. Ellie, something terrible has happened. I set down my coffee. What's wrong? It's Leon. It's all over the news. They're saying he stole money. I pulled up my laptop and searched Leon's name. The headlines hit me like a freight train. Henderson and Associates executive charged with embezzlement. Ponzi scheme uncovered at major investment firm. Clients lose millions in financial fraud case. Mom, slow down. What exactly happened? The FBI came to his apartment this morning, she sobbed. They arrested him, Ellie. Our Leon in handcuffs on the morning news. I clicked through the articles. Leon's photo was everywhere. Not the polished headshots from the company website, but a grainy shot of him being led away in cuffs, his face pale and shocked. The lawyer says it's all a misunderstanding, Mom continued. Leon would never steal. You know he wouldn't. But I was reading the details. Falsified investment reports, client money diverted to cover trading losses. A scheme that had been running for over 2 years. Mom, where's Dad? He's not handling this well. He locked himself in his study. Won't come out. Won't eat. Her voice cracked. Ellie, what are we going to do? My phone buzzed with another call. Camila. Mom, I need to take this. I'll call you back. I switched lines. Cam? Holy shit, Ellie. Are you seeing this? Yeah, I'm seeing it. Your brother's all over the financial news. They're saying he ran a Ponzi scheme for 2 years, used new investor money to pay old investors while gambling the rest on high-risk trades. I scrolled through more articles. The numbers were staggering. $12 million in client losses, forged documents, fake account statements. Ellie, this is insane. Your parents must be devastated. Mom just called. She's in denial. Thinks it's all a mistake. What about you? How are you handling this? I stared at Leon's mugshot on my screen, the golden boy, finally exposed. I'm fine, I said. Fine? Ellie, your brother just became the most hated man in the state. This is going to destroy your family. Before I could respond, my phone rang again. Mom. I have to go, Cam. Ellie? Mom's voice was even more frantic now. The reporters are here. They're on our lawn, asking questions about Leon, about our family. What do we tell them? Don't tell them anything. Don't open the door. But they're saying such horrible things about him, about us. They're asking if we knew, if we were involved. Were you involved? Of course not. How can you even ask that? Mom, I'm just trying to understand what happened. What happened is that someone set up our son. This is all lies, Ellie. Leon is a good boy. He's successful. He's smart. He would never... She broke off, sobbing again. Mom, where's Leon now? They released him on bail. He's staying at a hotel because the reporters won't leave his building alone. Alexis. Her voice turned bitter. Alexis won't see him. She returned his ring yesterday. Of course she did. Alexis was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. What does his lawyer say? that we need to prepare for a long fight, that the government has been building this case for months, but it's all circumstantial, right? They can't prove Leon actually intended to steal anything. I pulled up another article. The FBI had seized Leon's computers, his phone records, his bank statements. They had recordings of him lying to clients about their account balances. Mom, I think you need to prepare for the possibility that. No. Her voice turned sharp. Don't you dare. Leon is your brother. He's family. We stick together as a family. Even if he's guilty? He's not guilty. My other line beeped. Unknown number. Mom, I have another call coming in. Ellie, wait. We need to talk about money. The legal fees are going to be enormous, and with all the bad publicity, your father's business is already suffering. People are canceling contracts. What are you asking me? Could you maybe help us out? Just temporarily, until this all gets sorted out. I almost laughed. After 10 years of dismissing my career, now they wanted my help. How much are you talking about? Maybe 10,000? 15? I know it's a lot, but Leon's lawyer says. I'll think about it, I said, and switched to the other line. Is this Ellie Williams? Who's asking? This is Janet Morrison from Channel 7 News. I'm calling about your brother Leon Williams and the charges against him. Would you be willing to comment on... I hung up. The phone rang immediately. Another reporter. I turned it off and sat in the quiet of my office, surrounded by the evidence of my success, patents framed on the walls, awards from environmental organizations, financial statements showing profits that dwarfed anything Leon had ever legitimately earned. My laptop chimed with an email notification. The subject line made me smile. Henderson and Associates Asset Liquidation, Confidential Inquiry. I opened it. A bankruptcy firm reaching out about acquiring distressed assets from Leon's company, properties, equipment, client lists. I picked up my landline and dialed. Michael Stanley's office. This is Ellie Williams. I need to schedule a meeting with Michael. Today, if possible. Certainly, Ms. Williams. What's this regarding? I looked at Leon's mugshot still open on my screen. An acquisition opportunity, I said. A very time-sensitive one. Michael's office was on the 40th floor of downtown's tallest building, floor-to-ceiling windows, mahogany desk, the kind of place that screamed expensive legal advice. Ellie, he said, standing as I walked in, I have to say, when you called about acquiring Henderson and Associates assets, I was intrigued. I sat across from his desk. What's the situation? Complete liquidation. The firm's hemorrhaging money, clients are fleeing, and the FBI has frozen most accounts pending investigation. He slid a folder across the desk. They're desperate to sell everything, office equipment, client databases, even their lease agreements. I flipped through the documents. What about the residential properties? That's where it gets interesting. Michael leaned back in his chair. Leon leveraged several personal assets as collateral for business loans, including your parents' house. I looked up. Their house is collateral? Leon convinced them to sign papers last year, told them it was a formality for a business expansion loan. They had no idea he was using it to cover trading losses. So, if the business fails, they lose the house. The bank's already initiated foreclosure proceedings. I set the folder down. How long do they have? 60 days, maybe 90 if they get a good lawyer. But honestly, Ellie, unless someone pays off the loan, we're talking about $400,000, they're going to lose everything. And Leon? Leon's broke. Worse than broke. His legal fees alone will bankrupt him, assuming he doesn't go to prison first. I stood and walked to the window, looking down at the city below. Somewhere out there, my parents were probably still telling themselves this was all a mistake. I want to buy it, I said. The business assets? All of it. The company, the equipment, the debts. And I want to buy the loan on my parents' house. Michael was quiet for a moment. Ellie, that's a significant investment. We're talking about millions of dollars to acquire everything. I can handle it. Are you sure? I know your consulting firm is doing well, but this level of capital... Michael, I need you to set up a trust. Anonymous. I don't want my name anywhere on these transactions. He studied my face. What exactly are you planning? I'm planning to let karma run its course. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Camila's apartment, watching the news coverage of Henderson and Associates' bankruptcy auction. Anonymous buyer acquires all assets, the reporter was saying. The identity of the purchaser remains unknown, but sources say the sale price was well above market value. Camila muted the TV. Ellie, please tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing. What do you think I'm doing? Buying your brother's company out of spite. I'm making a business investment. Bullshit. She turned to face me fully. You're planning revenge. I can see it in your eyes. My phone rang. Mom. Should I answer it? I asked Camila. You're going to anyway. I picked up. Hi, Mom. Ellie, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for days. I've been busy with work. What's going on? Everything's falling apart. Her voice was raw from crying. Leon's lawyer says the case is worse than we thought. They have recordings, Ellie, actual recordings of him lying to clients. I'm sorry to hear that. And the house. Oh God, the house. We got papers from the bank. They're saying we have 30 days to pay $400,000 or they're taking it. 30 days? I thought you had longer. Leon's lawyer filed some motion that backfired, made everything happen faster. She was sobbing now. Ellie, we don't have $400,000. We don't have $40,000. Your father's business is ruined. No one will work with us. What about Leon? Can't he help? Leon can't even help himself. His accounts are frozen, he's facing 20 years in prison, and Alexis took half his stuff when she moved out. I looked at Camila, who was shaking her head. Mom, what do you want me to do? We need a loan, a big one. I know it's asking a lot, but your family, you're all we have left. How much are we talking about? The full $400,000. I know it sounds impossible, but maybe you could get a business loan, use your company as collateral. I almost smiled. They still had no idea what my little consulting firm was actually worth. That's a lot of money, Mom. I know, but we'll pay you back. Somehow. We'll sell everything else, downsize, whatever it takes. What does Dad say about this? Your father. She paused. Your father hasn't spoken to anyone in 3 days. He just sits in his study, staring at the wall. I think he's having some kind of breakdown. And Leon? Leon keeps saying he can fix this, that he has a plan, but Ellie, I don't think he can fix anything anymore. I stood up and walked to Camila's kitchen, lowering my voice. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Of course. Did you know about what Leon was doing? How can you ask me that? Because I need to know if you were willfully ignorant or actually ignorant. We trusted him, she said quietly. He showed us statements, told us about his success. We believed him because he was our son. Even when I told you renewable energy was the future, even when I said his investments seemed risky, you were studying trees, Ellie. Leon had an MBA. I closed my eyes. Even now, even with Leon in handcuffs and their house in foreclosure, she couldn't admit they'd been wrong about me. I'll see what I can do, I said. Really? Oh, Ellie, thank you. I knew we could count on you. Family sticks together. I hung up and went back to the living room. Well? Camila asked. They want me to save them. Are you going to? I picked up the remote and unmuted the TV. The news had moved on to weather, but I could still see the Henderson and Associates building in my mind, the building I now owned. I'm going to save them, I said, just not the way they think. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Foreclosure meeting scheduled for next Friday, 2 p.m. Bank's lawyer, your parents' lawyer, and the new loan holder will all be present. Are you ready for this? I typed back, I'll be there. Camila read over my shoulder. Ellie, once you do this, there's no going back. Good, I said. I don't want to go back. The law office smelled like leather and desperation. Mom and Dad sat across from a mahogany conference table, clutching each other's hands like they were drowning. Leon slouched in his chair, staring at his phone, probably reading more headlines about his downfall. George Hill, their bankruptcy lawyer, was shuffling through papers with the resigned expression of someone delivering terminal diagnoses for a living. The situation is straightforward, George said. The loan holder has agreed to meet today to discuss terms. There's a possibility of restructuring the debt, but what? Dad asked. His voice was hoarse. I'd never seen him look so small. But you need to understand that $400,000 is a substantial amount. Without significant assets or income to guarantee repayment, most lenders would simply proceed with foreclosure. Mom's grip on Dad's hand tightened. So there's no hope? I didn't say that. The new loan holder specifically requested this meeting, which suggests they're open to negotiation. Leon finally looked up from his phone. Who is the new loan holder? The bank sold the loan? Yes, to a private investment trust. They acquired it as part of a larger portfolio purchase. What kind of trust? Leon pressed. George consulted his notes. The Meridian Investment Trust. I don't have much information about them, but they seem to specialize in distressed asset acquisition. I checked my watch. 1:58 p.m. They should be here any minute, George said. The conference room door opened and Michael walked in, followed by a woman in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. George Hill? Michael extended his hand. Michael Stanley, representing the Meridian Investment Trust. George stood to shake hands. Of course, and this is? Sarah Martinez, our financial analyst. My parents and Leon were watching this exchange with desperate hope. They had no idea they were looking at my lawyer and my accountant. Please sit, George said. My clients are very eager to discuss restructuring options. Michael sat directly across from my family. Sarah took the seat beside him and opened her briefcase with clinical efficiency. Before we begin, Michael said, I should mention that the trust's principal will be joining us shortly. She prefers to handle these negotiations personally. She? Mom asked. The trust is managed by a woman, yes. Very successful in renewable energy investments, from what I understand. Leon's head snapped up. Renewable energy? Among other sectors, Sarah said smoothly. The trust has diversified holdings. I waited another minute, then knocked on the conference room door. That should be her now, Michael said, standing. The door opened and I walked in. The silence was deafening. Mom's mouth fell open. Dad blinked rapidly, like he was trying to process what he was seeing. Leon just stared. Hello? I said, taking the empty chair next to Michael's. Sorry I'm late. Ellie? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. What the hell is this? Leon demanded. This, I said, opening the folder Sarah handed me, is a business meeting. George looked confused. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Are you representing the trust? I am the trust, I said simply. Dad found his voice. That's impossible. Ellie works for a small consulting firm. I own several consulting firms, I corrected, along with a renewable energy technology company, a patent portfolio worth about $50 million, and as of 2 weeks ago, the remains of Henderson and Associates. The color drained from Leon's face. You bought my company? I bought your debt. Your company was worthless. This is insane, Mom said, looking between me and Michael. Ellie, what's going on? Why are you here? I pulled out the loan documents. I'm here because I own the mortgage on your house. The bank sold it to me. You? Dad's voice cracked. You bought our house? I bought your debt. There's a difference. Leon slammed his hand on the table. This is some kind of sick joke. No joke, I said, meeting his eyes. This is business. The same kind of business you've been doing for years, except I'm actually good at it. George cleared his throat. Ms. Williams, if you're the loan holder, then you have the authority to restructure this debt. Your parents are hoping— I know what they're hoping. I cut him off. They're hoping I'll save them, just like they hoped Leon would make them rich. Ellie, please, Mom said, tears starting to flow. We're family. Are we? I asked. Because family doesn't steal their daughter's college fund. Family doesn't dismiss their daughter's career for 10 years. Family doesn't call their daughter's life work tree-hugging and worthless. We never said worthless, Dad protested weakly. You said I'd be lucky to make $40,000 a year. You said environmental science was nonsense. You said Leon's opportunity was more important than my education. We were wrong, Mom sobbed. We were wrong about everything, but please don't punish us for— Punish you? I laughed, and it sounded cold even to me. I'm not punishing you. I'm giving you exactly what you gave me. What's that supposed to mean? Leon asked. I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city where I'd built my empire while they celebrated their golden boy. It means you're on your own, I said without turning around. Just like you left me. Ellie, wait, Dad said. We can work this out. We can pay you back. With what money? I turned back to face them. Leon's broke. Your business is ruined. You have no assets, no income, no prospects. We have the house, Mom said desperately. No, I said, sitting back down. I have the house. You have 30 days to vacate it. The room erupted. Leon started yelling about lawsuits and revenge. Mom collapsed into sobs. Dad just sat there, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. George tried to restore order. Ms. Williams, surely we can negotiate some kind of payment plan. There's nothing to negotiate, I said, standing again. The loan is in default. I'm exercising my right to foreclose. You can't do this, Leon said, his voice shaking with rage. You can't destroy your own family. I looked at him, really looked at him, the golden boy who'd taken everything from me and lost it all through his own greed and stupidity. I'm not destroying anything, I said quietly. I'm just not saving you from the consequences of your own choices. I gathered my papers and headed for the door. Ellie, Mom called after me. Please, we'll do anything. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. Anything? I asked. Yes, she said eagerly. Anything. I turned back to face them one last time. Then you should have thought of that 10 years ago. I didn't make it to the elevator before Leon caught up with me. Ellie, wait! He grabbed my arm, spinning me around. His face was flushed, desperate. You can't be serious about this. I pulled my arm free. Dead serious. This is our parents we're talking about. Your parents. They raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. And then they took my future and handed it to you on a silver platter. That was different. That was an investment opportunity. That lost them everything. I pressed the elevator button, just like I said it would. Leon stepped closer, lowering his voice. Look, I know I screwed up. I know the investment went bad, but destroying Mom and Dad won't fix that. I'm not destroying them. I'm just not saving them. Same thing. The elevator dinged and the doors opened. I stepped inside, but Leon blocked the doors from closing. What do you want? He asked. Money? I don't have any, but when this legal mess gets sorted out. Leon, you're going to prison. There is no when this gets sorted out. Then what? What will it take for you to walk away from this? I looked at him, really looked at him. Even now, facing bankruptcy and criminal charges, he still thought he could negotiate his way out. Still thought he was the smart one. I want you to tell them, I said. Tell them what? The truth. About the college fund. About what really happened to their money. Leon's face went pale. What are you talking about? I know about the margin calls, Leon. I know you lost my college fund in the first 6 months and spent the next 2 years covering it up with other people's money. That's not. How did you? Marcus told me, years ago. He felt guilty about what you'd done. Leon sagged against the elevator door frame. Ellie, please, if Mom and Dad find out, they'll what? Be disappointed in their golden boy? Finally see you for what you really are? It'll kill them. No, Leon, losing their house will kill them. Watching their son go to prison will kill them. Finding out their daughter could have saved them but chose not to, that might actually kill them. I pressed the elevator button again. Move! Ellie, move, or I call security. He stepped back, and the doors started to close. You're making a mistake, he called out. This isn't who you are. But the doors closed, and I was alone. I made it to the parking garage before my phone started ringing. Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. Ellie, please call me back. Please. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but we can fix this. We can make this right. Just, please don't do this. Please don't take our home. The phone rang again immediately. Dad this time. I answered. Ellie. His voice was broken. I need to understand something. What's that? How long have you been successful? How long have you been wealthy? I sat in my car, staring at the concrete wall of the parking garage. About 8 years. 8 years. He was quiet for a long moment. And you never told us. Why would I? So you could ask me for money? So you could take credit for my success? So we could be proud of you. I almost laughed. You were never proud of me, Dad. You were proud of Leon. I was just the disappointment who studied trees. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my work? When's the last time you bragged about me to your friends? Silence. That's what I thought. Ellie, I know we made mistakes. Mistakes? My voice rose. Dad, you stole my future and gave it to Leon. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. We thought we were doing what was best for the family. You thought you were doing what was best for Leon. I was never part of the equation. That's not. It is true, and you know it. Even now, even with Leon facing prison and your house in foreclosure, you're still trying to protect him, still trying to make excuses for him. Dad was crying now. I could hear it in his voice. What do you want from us, Ellie? What can we do to make this right? Nothing, I said. There's nothing you can do. It's too late. It's never too late. We're family. No, Dad. We're strangers who happen to share DNA. Family supports each other. Family believes in each other. Family doesn't sacrifice one child for another. I hung up and turned off my phone. Camila was waiting in my driveway when I got home, sitting on my front steps with 2 cups of coffee. Rough day? She asked, handing me a cup. You could say that. How did they take it? About as well as you'd expect. Leon tried to guilt me in the hallway. Dad called crying. Mom left 3 more voicemails on the drive home. Camila studied my face. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Ellie. I'm fine, Cam. This is what they deserve. Is it? Or is this what you think they deserve? I sat down beside her on the steps. What's the difference? The difference is that revenge never feels as good as you think it will. This isn't revenge, this is consequences. Same thing, different word. We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set over the neighborhood where I'd built my new life, far from my parents' house, far from their expectations and disappointments. They'll be homeless, Camila said quietly. They'll figure something out. They always do. Will they? I didn't answer because I wasn't sure, and for the first time since this whole thing started, that uncertainty felt like a weight in my chest. I should go, Camila said, standing up. But Ellie, whatever you decide to do next, make sure it's something you can live with. She left me sitting on my steps, holding my coffee, and wondering if the hollow feeling in my stomach was satisfaction or something else entirely. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Foreclosure proceedings will begin Monday. Are you sure about this? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, yes. But as I hit send, I realized I wasn't sure about anything anymore. The foreclosure was finalized on a Thursday. I drove past the house that afternoon and saw the moving truck in the driveway. Mom was standing on the front lawn, directing the movers with boxes that contained 30 years of their life together. She saw my car and walked over before I could drive away. Ellie. She looked exhausted, older somehow. I wasn't sure you'd come. I was just driving by. We're moving into a 1-bedroom apartment across town. Your father found a part-time job at an accounting firm. It's not much, but that's good, I said, not knowing what else to say. Leon's sentencing is next week. His lawyer thinks he'll get 12 years. I nodded. I heard. Mom wrapped her arms around herself. I keep thinking about what you said, about the college fund, about how we treated you. Mom, no, let me say this. You were right. We did choose Leon over you. We did dismiss your dreams. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Apologies don't change anything. I know, but I need you to know that we were wrong about everything, about you, about Leon, about what success really means. A mover walked past carrying a box labeled Leon's trophies. High school football, college debate team, business school awards, all meaningless now. The house looks smaller than I remembered, I said. It was never about the house, Mom replied. It was about having a place where our family could be together. But I guess we lost that long before we lost the house. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who'd raised me, who'd made my favorite cookies when I was sick, who'd also stood by while Dad dismissed my dreams and Leon took my future. I have to go, I said. Ellie, wait. She reached through the car window and touched my hand. I know you'll probably never forgive us, but I want you to know. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. and I'm ashamed that it took losing everything for me to see it. I pulled my hand away and drove off without looking back. That night, I sat in my home office staring at the deed to their house. My house now. I could rent it out, sell it, tear it down, and build something new. I had all the power now. My laptop was open to a Reddit thread I'd been reading, stories about family betrayal, about revenge, about people who'd gotten back at those who'd wronged them. The comments were always the same. Good for you, and they got what they deserved, and justice served. But none of those stories mentioned the emptiness that came after. None of them talked about the hollow victory, the way revenge tasted like ash in your mouth. I opened a new browser tab and started typing. Aita for destroying my family after they stole my college fund? I wrote out the whole story. Every detail, every betrayal, every moment of calculated revenge. I wrote about the college fund, about working 3 jobs, about the patent that changed everything. I wrote about Leon's downfall and my parents' foreclosure and the look on their faces when they realized who I'd become. When I finished, I stared at the post for a long time. Then I deleted it. Instead, I picked up my phone and called Camila. Hey, she said, how are you holding up? I think I made a mistake. Which part? All of it. The revenge, the foreclosure, the cold shoulder. I thought it would feel better than this. And how does it feel? Empty. Like I won, but I lost something too. Camila was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I looked at the deed again, then at the framed photo on my desk, me and Camila at our college graduation. She'd been there when my family wasn't. She'd celebrated my success when they couldn't see it. I'm going to start a foundation, I said, for women in STEM whose families don't support their dreams. Full scholarships, mentorship programs, everything I wish I'd had. That's beautiful, Ellie. But what about your parents? I thought about Mom standing on the lawn, apologizing for things that couldn't be undone, about Dad's broken voice on the phone, about Leon, who'd probably spend the next decade in prison thinking about the choices that led him there. I can't give them their house back, I said, and I can't forgive them for what they did. But maybe I can make sure other girls don't go through what I went through. And your family? They're not my family anymore. You are. The women I'm going to help, they're my family now. I hung up and opened my laptop again. This time, I started typing a different kind of post. The Ellie Foundation is now accepting applications for our first round of scholarships. We support young women pursuing careers in environmental science, renewable energy, and related STEM fields, especially those whose families don't believe in their dreams. I attached my story not as a plea for judgment, but as a promise that what happened to me wouldn't happen to them. The responses started coming in within hours. Stories from girls whose parents wanted them to be teachers or nurses instead of engineers. Stories from young women whose college funds had been borrowed for their brothers' business ventures. Stories that sounded exactly like mine. I read every single one. By morning, I had over 300 applications and a waiting list of mentors. Successful women in STEM who wanted to pay it forward. I never heard from my parents again. Sometimes I wondered if they tried to contact me and I just never saw the messages. Sometimes I wondered if they thought about me at all. But it didn't matter anymore. I'd built something bigger than revenge, something that would outlast my anger and their regret. The foundation's first scholarship recipient was an 18-year-old named Maria, whose parents had spent her college fund on her brother's failed restaurant. She wanted to study solar energy engineering. When I handed her the check, she started crying. Thank you, she said. You have no idea what this means. But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant to have someone believe in your dreams when your own family wouldn't. That was worth more than any revenge. That was justice. The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday, addressed to my parents. I stared at the crisp white envelope through my apartment door's peephole, watching the mailman disappear down the hallway. My hands shook as I set it on the kitchen counter, unopened. Not yet. My name is Marlene, and I'm about to tell you how I became the villain in my own family's story. Or maybe I was always the villain and I just finally decided to own it. Marlene, thank God you picked up. My mother's voice crackled through my phone speaker as I limped back to the couch, my left leg still stiff from the accident 3 months ago. We need to talk about Daisy. Of course we did. We always needed to talk about Daisy. What happened now, Mom? She's in trouble, real trouble this time. The business loan, the credit cards, that investment in the retreat center that fell through. It's all coming due at once. I closed my eyes, already knowing where this conversation was heading. How much? 147,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I'd been expecting maybe 20, 30,000. Not this. Marlene, are you there? I'm here. My voice came out flat. When does she need it? By Friday. The lawyers are already involved, and if she doesn't pay, her brand dies. I know. I'd heard this song before, just never with this many zeros. You're the only one who can help her. Your father and I were already stretched thin with the house payments, and I'll figure it out. The relief in her voice was audible. Oh, sweetheart, you're such a blessing. Daisy will be so grateful. We all will. But I knew better. Gratitude from my family had an expiration date of about 2 weeks. After hanging up, I stared at my laptop screen, scrolling through my savings account. The inheritance from Aunt Ruth sat there like a safety net I was about to set on fire. Again. My phone buzzed with a text from Daisy. Mom told me you're helping. You're literally saving my life right now. Love you so much. 3 heart eye emojis and a promise to totally pay me back soon followed. I'd heard that promise before, too. The next morning, I sat in the bank manager's office signing papers that would drain most of my inheritance, the same inheritance I'd used 6 months earlier to secretly buy this apartment, the apartment my parents thought I was barely affording to rent. This is a substantial withdrawal, Ms. King, the manager said, sliding the cashier's check across his desk. Are you sure about this? I thought about Daisy's Instagram post from last night. A photo of her crying into her green smoothie with the caption, When life gets overwhelming, but you remember your family has your back. Blessed Warmark family, first never give up, 200,000 likes and counting. I'm sure. That Friday, I handed Daisy the check at our parents' house. She hugged me so tight I could smell her expensive perfume, the kind that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. You literally just saved my entire career. She whispered, I'm going to make this up to you, I promise. Dad clapped me on the shoulder. That's our Marlene, always the responsible one. Mom beamed. We raised you girls right. Family takes care of family. I wanted to ask who was taking care of me, but I already knew the answer. I was taking care of me. I'd always been taking care of me. Just promise me you'll be more careful with money going forward, I said to Daisy. She nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. This was a wake-up call. I'm going to be so much smarter about everything. 3 weeks later, she posted photos from her gratitude retreat in Bali. The caption read, Sometimes you have to invest in yourself to grow self-care / grateful not living my best life. I stared at the post from my couch, ice pack pressed against my lower back after another 12-hour day at the accounting firm. The comments were full of people praising her courage and authenticity, not one mention of where the money for her fresh start had come from. That's when I started planning. Not revenge exactly, just insurance. I pulled out my phone and called Cade, the lawyer who'd helped me with the apartment purchase. I need to discuss some tenant rights, I said, glancing at that unopened eviction notice still sitting on my counter. What kind of tenant rights? I smiled for the first time in weeks, the kind that protect property owners from ungrateful tenants. 6 months after I handed Daisy that check, she was everywhere. Magazine covers, podcast interviews, a book deal worth more than I made in 2 years. The Daisy Bloom method was trending on every platform. Look at this. Mom thrust her phone in my face during Sunday dinner. Daisy made Forbes 30 under 30 list. I glanced at the article while cutting my overcooked chicken. There was my sister, glowing in a white blazer, talking about authentic wellness and building an empire from nothing. From nothing. Right? She's doing a morning show appearance next week, Dad said, scrolling through his own phone. National television. Our little girl. That's great, I said, forcing a smile. Really great. Daisy beamed from across the table. The producer said my story is so inspiring, how I overcame financial struggles to build something meaningful. I nearly choked on my water. Financial struggles? You know, that rough patch last year when everything felt impossible. She reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm so grateful for the support system I had. It really taught me the value of family. Mom's eyes actually teared up. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. The conversation moved on to Daisy's upcoming retreat in Costa Rica, her new skincare line, her collaboration with a major athletic wear brand. I sat there, invisible as always, calculating how much money was flowing through her accounts while I worked 60-hour weeks just to stay afloat. After dinner, I helped Mom with dishes while Daisy and Dad planned her media strategy in the living room. You know, Mom said, scrubbing a wine glass, you should think about what you want to do with your life. I have a career, Mom. I'm an accountant. I mean something meaningful, like Daisy. She's really making a difference in people's lives. I dried the glass carefully, fighting the urge to throw it against the wall. Right, of course. Maybe you could work for her. She's going to need financial help managing all this success. The irony was so thick I could taste it. I'll think about it. That night, I sat in my apartment that they still thought I was renting, and opened my laptop. The inheritance from Aunt Ruth had been substantial, more than anyone in my family realized. While they'd been focused on Daisy's crisis, I'd quietly made the smartest financial decision of my life. I pulled up the property deed, my name printed clearly at the top, Marlene King, sole owner. The mortgage was paid in full, the apartment was mine, and I'd been letting my parents think I was struggling to make rent. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Hazel. Saw Daisy's Forbes thing. How are you holding up? Living the dream, I typed back. Want to grab drinks tomorrow? You sound like you need them. Can't. Working late again. Marlene, you're going to burn out. When's the last time you did something for yourself? I stared at the question, trying to remember. When had I last bought something I wanted instead of needed? When had I last taken a vacation? When had I last felt like my life belonged to me? I'm fine, I lied. The next few months blurred together. More magazine features for Daisy, more late nights for me. She launched a podcast called Blooming into Abundance that hit #1 in the wellness category. The episode about overcoming financial trauma got 2 million downloads. I listened to it during my lunch break, sitting in my car outside the office. There was this moment, Daisy's voice flowed through my earbuds, where I had to face the reality that I'd made some poor financial choices. But instead of letting shame consume me, I chose to see it as a growth opportunity. The host made sympathetic noises. That takes such courage. It really does, and having a strong support system was everything. My family never made me feel judged or ashamed. They just showed up with love and practical help. Practical help, that's what they called it. The universe has a way of providing exactly what you need when you need it, Daisy continued. I truly believe that. I turned off the podcast and called Hazel. I need to tell you something, I said when she picked up. Finally, what's going on? I own my apartment. Bought it outright 6 months ago with Aunt Ruth's inheritance. Silence, then. Wait, what? But you said you were barely making rent. I never said that. Everyone just assumed. Marlene, why didn't you tell them? I watched a delivery truck struggle to parallel park across the street, because the second they know I have money, it stops being mine. That's actually pretty smart, and kind of devious. I'm learning. 3 weeks later, I was driving home from my second job when the semi ran the red light. The last thing I remember was the sound of metal crushing metal, and then everything went black. I woke up in the hospital with a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and a shattered left leg that would need months of physical therapy. The first person I called was Hazel. The second was my boss to tell him I wouldn't be coming in for a while. The third call was to my parents. Oh my God, sweetheart, are you okay? Mom's voice was full of concern. I'm alive, but I'm going to be out of work for at least 3 months. Don't worry about anything. We'll figure it out. Family takes care of family, remember? For the first time in months, I smiled. Yeah, Mom, I remember. 2 weeks after the accident, I was hobbling around my apartment on crutches when Mom called. How are you feeling, honey? Like I got hit by a truck, literally. I settled onto the couch, propping my cast up on the coffee table. That's why I'm calling. Your father and I have been talking, and we think you need help. I'm managing okay. Physical therapy is going well, and Marlene, be realistic. You can't work, your bills are piling up, and you're all alone in that apartment. It's not sustainable. She wasn't wrong about the bills. Workers' comp only covered so much, and my savings were draining fast. The irony wasn't lost on me. I owned the apartment outright, but I couldn't let them know that without revealing the inheritance. What are you suggesting? Well, your father and I have been thinking about downsizing anyway. The house is getting too big for us, and with Daisy's success, we want to be closer to the city for her events. I waited for the other shoe to drop. We could move into your spare bedroom temporarily. Help with rent, groceries, take care of you while you recover. It's perfect timing, really. My grip tightened on the phone. You want to move in here? Just until you're back on your feet. And honestly, it would help us too. The housing market is crazy right now, and we need time to find the right place. What about Daisy? Couldn't she help you with... Oh, sweetheart, Daisy's in such a delicate place right now with her brand expansion. She can't pause her momentum for family drama. Family drama. That's what my car accident was to them. I need to think about it. Of course, but don't think too long. We could be there by the weekend to help you get settled. After she hung up, I stared at the ceiling, my leg throbbing. The smart thing would be to tell them no. But I was tired, in pain, and despite everything, part of me wanted to believe they actually cared. Hazel came over that evening with Thai food and wine. You look terrible, she said, setting the bags on my kitchen counter. Thanks. Really what I needed to hear. I'm serious. When's the last time you showered? I couldn't remember. My parents want to move in. Hazel froze, chopsticks halfway to her mouth. Here? With you? They say it's to help me recover, and to help them transition while they look for a new place. That's... She set down her food. Marlene, you know this is a terrible idea, right? Is it? I mean, I could use the help, and they'd contribute to expenses. They'd contribute to the expenses of the apartment you secretly own? When she put it like that, it sounded insane, but I was so tired of carrying everything alone. Maybe it'll be different this time. Hazel gave me a look that said she'd heard that before. Dad called the next morning while I was struggling to make coffee one-handed. Marlene, I've been running numbers on your situation. Good morning to you too, Dad. Your rent, utilities, groceries, medical bills, you're looking at a shortfall of at least $2,000 a month. That's not sustainable. I know. I'm working on it. Here's what I'm thinking. Your mother and I move in. We split the rent 3 ways. That cuts your housing costs by 60% right there. I nearly laughed. They wanted to pay rent on the apartment I owned. We'd also handle groceries, utilities, help with your physical therapy appointments. It's a win-win. What about your house? We'll rent it out. The rental income will help us save for our next place. Everything was always about their next move, their next plan. I was just a convenient stepping stone. When would this happen? This weekend. We've already started packing. They'd started packing before I'd even agreed. Of course they had. Dad, I haven't said yes yet. Marlene, be practical. You need help. We need a place to stay temporarily. Sometimes the universe aligns things perfectly. The universe. He sounded like Daisy. That afternoon, Daisy finally called. Oh my God, I just heard about your accident. Mom told me this morning. Are you okay? I've been better. Where have you been for 2 weeks? I'm so sorry. I've been in this intensive retreat planning phase, and my phone has been on airplane mode for digital detox. I had no idea. Mom didn't tell you? She mentioned you had a little fender bender, but I didn't realize it was serious. I feel terrible. A little fender bender. That's how my accident had been described to the golden child. I'm going to be out of work for months, Daisy. That's awful. But hey, maybe this is the universe telling you to slow down. You work way too hard. I work hard because I have bills to pay. Right, of course. Listen, I wish I could help financially, but everything is tied up in the business expansion right now. You understand? I understood perfectly. But Mom and Dad moving in is such a great solution. It'll be like a family healing retreat. They told you about that? Dad called this morning. He's so excited to help you. We all are. After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the stack of medical bills on the counter. Through the thin walls, I could hear my neighbor's TV, a cooking show where someone was explaining how to properly season a roast. My phone rang again. Dad. Marlene, I forgot to mention. We'll need your keys by Friday so we can get copies made and start moving our things in over the weekend. My keys? For efficiency. We can get everything set up while you rest. I closed my eyes, the pieces clicking into place. They weren't moving in to help me recover. They were moving in because they needed a place to live, and I was too weak to stop them. Sure, Dad, I'll have them ready. That's our girl. Always so reasonable. After I hung up, I reached for my laptop and opened a new browser window. Time to call Cade. They moved in like a hurricane. By Sunday evening, my apartment looked like a completely different place. Mom had rearranged my furniture for better flow, and Dad had claimed the dining table as his home office, spreading financial documents across every surface. This lighting is terrible for video calls, Mom said, adjusting my living room lamp for the third time. Daisy's doing a collaboration shoot here next week. Here? I struggled to stand from the couch, my crutches clattering. In my apartment? Our apartment now, sweetheart. We're all in this together. Dad looked up from his laptop. The Wi-Fi password needs to be changed, something more professional. Daisy's team will need access. I stared at them, these people who'd lived in my space for exactly 48 hours and were already treating me like a guest. I need to rest, I said, hobbling toward my bedroom. Oh, before you do that, Mom called after me, we need to talk about the bedroom situation. I turned around slowly. What about it? Well, your father's back isn't what it used to be, and that pull-out couch is murder on his spine. We were thinking maybe you could take the living room for a few weeks, just until we get a proper bed delivered. You want me to sleep on the couch? In my own apartment? It's temporary, honey. And really, with your leg, wouldn't it be easier for you to be closer to the kitchen and bathroom? Dad nodded without looking up from his screen. Makes sense, logistically. That night, I lay on my own couch, listening to my parents argue through the thin bedroom wall about whether to accept Daisy's offer to redecorate their room. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of power tools. What's happening? I called out, trying to untangle myself from the blanket. Just making some improvements. Dad's voice came from the direction of my bedroom. Daisy needs better lighting for her content creation. I hobbled over to find him installing a ring light mount on my bedroom ceiling. Dad, what are you doing? Daisy's launching a new morning routine series. She needs a consistent filming location, and this room has the best natural light. That's my bedroom. Well, you're not using it right now. And this is temporary, remember? Mom appeared in the doorway with coffee and a bright smile. Isn't this exciting? We're going to be part of Daisy's content creation process. I didn't agree to any of this. Marlene, don't be difficult. Daisy's brand is at a crucial growth phase. We all need to support her. What about supporting me? I'm the one recovering from a car accident. Mom's smile faltered slightly. Of course we're supporting you. We moved in to help, didn't we? That afternoon, Hazel came over with groceries and found me sitting on the couch staring at the wall. Jesus? What happened in here? She looked around at the chaos of boxes, camera equipment, and my parents' belongings scattered everywhere. They're settling in. This looks like they're taking over. She sat down next to me, lowering her voice. Where are you sleeping? Here. Dad's back problems, apparently. Marlene, this is insane. It's your apartment. Is it, though? I gestured around the room. Because it sure doesn't feel like it anymore. Hazel pulled out her phone. What's your lease say about guests? It doesn't matter. They're family. Family doesn't kick you out of your own bedroom. Before I could respond, the front door opened and Daisy walked in with 2 assistants and a photographer. Perfect, she announced, not bothering to greet me. The light is exactly what we need. Mom, did you move the dresser like I asked? All done, sweetheart. And I picked up those organic cotton sheets you wanted. I watched them transform my bedroom into a film set, moving my personal belongings into boxes without asking. Excuse me, I said, struggling to stand. Those are my things. Daisy looked over, seeming to notice me for the first time. Oh, hey, how are you feeling? You look better. I'd feel better if people asked before moving my stuff. Of course, I'm sorry. It's just, we're on such a tight schedule with this campaign launch. She gestured to her team. But don't worry, we'll put everything back exactly how it was. One of her assistants, a young woman with perfectly straightened hair, whispered something in Daisy's ear. Actually, Daisy said, Sloane thinks it might be better to keep the room set up for filming. We're doing a whole series here over the next month. A month? Maybe 2. The engagement rates are so much higher when the content feels authentic and homey. Mom clapped her hands together. Isn't this wonderful? Our little apartment is going to be famous. Our apartment, not mine. Ours. I excused myself to the bathroom, the only room in the apartment that still felt like mine. My phone was buzzing with a text from Hazel. Check your lease. Now. I pulled up the documents on my phone, scrolling through the legal language until I found what I was looking for. There it was, in black and white. The apartment lease was in my name only. But more importantly, buried in my files was something else entirely. The property deed. My name, sole owner. I stared at the screen, a slow smile spreading across my face. My parents had been so focused on taking over my space, they'd never bothered to ask the most basic question, who actually owned it? I opened a new text to Cade. Need to meet. Tomorrow, if possible. It's time. From the living room, I could hear Daisy directing her photo shoot. Can we get more pillows? This needs to feel like a real home, not a staged apartment. A real home. That's exactly what this was. My real home. And it was time to remind everyone whose name was on the deed. I hobbled back out to the living room, where my parents were arranging throw pillows for Daisy's shoot. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in weeks. We need to talk. Cade's office smelled like leather and coffee, a stark contrast to the chaos of my apartment. I sat across from his mahogany desk, my crutches propped against the chair. So, let me get this straight, he said, reviewing the documents I'd brought. Your parents moved into the apartment you own, thinking you're renting it, and now they've essentially taken over? That's the simplified version, yes. And they're planning to stay indefinitely? Dad mentioned something about converting my bedroom into a permanent studio space for Daisy. Apparently, her content performs better in authentic home environments. Cade leaned back in his chair. Marlene, you know you can just tell them to leave, right? It's your property. It's not that simple. They think they're helping me. If I suddenly reveal I own the place, they'll know about the inheritance, and then they'll know you have money. Exactly. And the second they know that, I become the family ATM again. He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Okay, let's talk about your options. As the property owner, you have the right to terminate any occupancy with proper notice. What kind of notice? In this state, 30 days for month-to-month tenants. But since there's no formal lease agreement and no rent being paid, it's more complicated. I shifted in my chair, my leg aching. What if we treated them like tenants? Drew up a formal lease, collected rent, the whole thing. That could work, but once they're legal tenants, they have rights. It might be harder to get them out later. What about eviction? Cade raised an eyebrow. That's nuclear. Are you sure you want to go there? I thought about waking up on my own couch this morning, about Dad installing camera equipment in my bedroom without asking, about Mom referring to it as our apartment. What would it take? Well, if they're not paying rent and there's no lease, they're technically trespassers. But given the family relationship, a judge would probably require formal notice first. How formal? Official eviction notice, served by a process server, 30 days to vacate. The idea sent a thrill through me. And they wouldn't know it was coming? Not unless you told them. He studied my face. Marlene, this is going to blow up your family relationships. You understand that, right? My family relationships are already blown up. I'm just the only one who doesn't know it yet. He nodded slowly. I'll need a few days to prepare the paperwork. Are you sure about this? I'm sure. That evening, I returned to find my apartment transformed again. Daisy's team had installed professional lighting throughout the living room, and there were ring lights set up in the kitchen. There she is, Daisy called out when I walked in. Perfect timing. We're doing a live stream about family support systems. A what? It's going to be so authentic. Me cooking dinner with Mom while talking about how family shows up for each other during hard times. Mom was already at the stove, wearing one of Daisy's branded aprons. Isn't this fun? We're going to be on the internet. Where am I supposed to eat dinner? I asked, looking at the kitchen full of camera equipment. Oh, we ordered you something, Daisy said, not looking up from her phone. It's in the fridge. We need the kitchen to look natural for the stream. I opened the fridge to find a sad-looking sandwich from the deli downstairs. Daisy, this is my kitchen. I know, and I'm so grateful you're letting us use it. This content is going to perform so well. My engagement has been through the roof since we started filming here. Dad appeared from the bedroom, carrying more equipment. The bedroom setup is perfect for tomorrow's morning routine video. Sloane thinks we should paint the walls a softer color, though. Paint the walls? I stared at him. You want to paint my bedroom? Just a touch up, something more camera friendly. Dad, you can't just paint someone else's walls. Marlene, don't be dramatic. It's just paint. I looked around at these people who'd invaded my space, rearranged my life, and were now planning to redecorate my bedroom for my sister's social media career. I need some air, I said, grabbing my crutches. Don't go far, Mom called after me. We're ordering dinner for the team, and we need to know how many people. I made it to the hallway before my phone rang. Hazel, how did it go with the lawyer? He's preparing eviction papers. Holy shit, you're really doing this. They want to paint my bedroom, Hazel, for Daisy's content. Jesus, when do they get served? Next week, 30 days notice. Are you going to warn them? I thought about the sandwich in my fridge, about sleeping on my own couch, about being treated like a guest in my own home. No, they didn't warn me before taking over my life. This is going to be messy. It's already messy. I'm just evening the playing field. When I got back upstairs, the live stream was in full swing. Through the door, I could hear Daisy talking to her audience. Family is everything, you guys. When I was going through my hardest times, my family showed up without question. That's what real love looks like. The comments were flowing. You're so lucky to have such supportive family. Goals! This is what family should be. I stood in the hallway, listening to my sister monetize our family dysfunction for content, and pulled out my phone to text Cade. How soon can you have those papers ready? His response came back immediately. Friday. You sure about this? I looked at my apartment door, at the home that no longer felt like mine, and typed back, never been more sure of anything in my life. From inside, I could hear applause from Daisy's live stream audience. Mom was probably beaming, basking in the reflected glow of her golden child's success. In 3 days, they'd find out exactly who owned the spotlight. The process server arrived at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, just as Daisy was setting up for her afternoon mindful living segment. I watched through the peephole as he knocked, official documents in hand. Marlene, can you get that? Mom called from the kitchen, where she was arranging organic produce for Daisy's backdrop. We're about to go live. I opened the door, my heart hammering. I'm looking for Lucille King, Wilfred King, and Daisy King, the server said. That's us, Dad said, appearing behind me. What's this about? Legal documents. I need to serve each of you individually. The color drained from Dad's face. Legal documents? What kind of legal documents? Sir, I just deliver them. You'll need to read the contents. Mom appeared, wiping her hands on a dish towel. What's going on? Daisy's about to start filming. Ma'am, are you Lucille King? Yes, but he handed her an envelope. You've been served. The same process repeated with Dad, then Daisy, who looked completely bewildered as she accepted her envelope. There must be some mistake, she said. We haven't done anything wrong. Again, ma'am, I just deliver the documents. Have a good day. After he left, the three of them stood in my living room holding their envelopes like they might explode. Open them, I said quietly. Dad tore his open first. I watched his face change as he read, confusion shifting to shock, then to something that looked like panic. This is... He looked up at me. This is an eviction notice. What? Mom ripped open her envelope. That's impossible. We don't even have a lease. Daisy was still staring at her unopened envelope. I don't understand. Eviction from where? Here, Dad said, his voice hollow. From this apartment. But that doesn't make sense, Mom said, scanning the document. The landlord would have to serve these, not some random person, and Marlene's the tenant here, not us. They all turned to look at me. I was still standing by the door, my crutches supporting me, watching their world shift. Marlene, Dad said slowly, what's going on? I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded document, the property deed. I think you should sit down. We don't have time for this, Daisy said, finally opening her envelope. I have a live stream in 10 minutes and she stopped reading, her face going white. This says I have 30 days to vacate the premises. Because you do. Mom was shaking her head. This has to be a mistake. Some kind of clerical error. Marlene, call your landlord. Tell them we're family, that we're helping you recover. I can't call my landlord, Mom. Why not? I unfolded the deed and held it up. Because I am the landlord. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the traffic noise from the street seemed to fade away. Dad was the first to speak. What do you mean, you're the landlord? I mean, I own this apartment. I bought it 6 months ago with Aunt Ruth's inheritance. That's impossible, Mom said. You can barely afford rent. You work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I worked 2 jobs to make you think I could barely afford rent. Daisy was staring at the eviction notice like it was written in a foreign language. You own this place? Free and clear. No mortgage, no landlord, no rent. Just me and my property deed. Dad sank into the couch. The inheritance, how much was it? Enough to buy this apartment and pay off your daughter's 6-figure debt. But you said you were struggling, Mom said. You said money was tight. I never said that. You assumed that, just like you assumed I'd be grateful for you taking over my home. Daisy finally found her voice. So when you served us eviction notices, I served them because you're trespassing on my property. You moved in without permission, took over my bedroom, turned my kitchen into a film studio, and treated me like a guest in my own home. We were helping you. Mom's voice was rising. You were hurt. You couldn't work. You were helping yourselves. You needed a place to stay, and I was convenient. Dad was reading through the eviction notice again. 30 days. That's what the law requires for squatters. Squatters? Daisy's voice cracked. We're not squatters. We're your family. Family doesn't kick someone out of their own bedroom. Family doesn't rearrange someone's furniture without asking. Family doesn't turn someone's home into a content creation studio. Mom was pacing now, the eviction notice crumpled in her hand. This is insane. You can't just throw us out on the street. I'm not throwing you out on the street. I'm giving you 30 days to find somewhere else to live. That's more notice than you gave me before moving in. We gave you notice, Dad protested. You told me you were moving in. You didn't ask if you could move in. There's a difference. Daisy was staring at her phone, probably calculating how this would affect her content schedule. My audience is expecting the morning routine series. I've already promoted it. Film it somewhere else. But the lighting here is perfect, and the engagement rates are not my problem. The room fell silent again. I could see them processing, trying to figure out how they'd misread the situation so completely. Marlene, Mom said finally, her voice softer now. We can work this out. We're family. We don't need lawyers and eviction notices. You're right. We didn't need them, but you made them necessary when you decided my recovery was less important than Daisy's content creation. Dad looked up from the notice. What do you want from us? I want you to pack your things and leave my apartment. You have 30 days. And if we don't? I smiled for the first time in weeks. Then you'll find out what happens when family takes family to court. The first week after serving the eviction notices, they tried guilt. I can't believe you're doing this to your own family, Mom said, standing in my kitchen while I made coffee. After everything we've done for you. Like what exactly? We raised you, supported you, gave you a loving home. And I paid for Daisy's entire career restart. I'd say we're even. Dad tried the practical approach. Marlene, be reasonable. The housing market is impossible right now. We can't find anything decent in 30 days. You found this place in 2 days when you needed it. That was different. We were helping you. You were helping yourselves. By the second week, they switched to anger. This is vindictive and petty, Daisy said, pacing around the living room while her assistant Sloane packed up ring lights. You're destroying my content calendar over some stupid power trip. Your content calendar isn't my responsibility. I have brand partnerships depending on this apartment. Do you know how much money you're costing me? About as much as I cost myself keeping you afloat. Sloane looked up from the equipment box. Maybe we should just find a new location. This whole situation is getting weird. Daisy whirled on her. Weird? My own sister is trying to make me homeless and you think it's weird? I think your sister owns the apartment and asked you to leave, Sloane said quietly. That's not making you homeless. I liked Sloane more every day. The third week brought desperation. What if we paid rent? Dad asked. Real rent? Market rate? We could sign a lease. I don't want tenants. I want my home back. What if we just stayed in the spare room? Daisy could film somewhere else. Dad, you're not listening. I want you to leave. But why? We're family. Family doesn't treat each other like this. Like what? I gestured around the apartment, which still looked more like a film studio than a home. Like unpaid staff in their own lives. Mom tried one last guilt trip. Your father's been having chest pains from the stress. Do you want to give your own father a heart attack? Dad's chest pains started when he realized he'd have to find his own place to live instead of mooching off his daughter. Mooching? Dad's face turned red. We were helping you. By taking over my bedroom, by turning my kitchen into a film set, by treating me like a guest in my own home? We never. You literally kicked me out of my own bedroom, Dad, for Daisy's content. The fourth week brought lawyers. My client is prepared to offer a settlement, their attorney said over speakerphone while we sat in Cade's office. What kind of settlement? Cade asked. Continued occupancy in exchange for monthly rent payments and a formal lease agreement. No, I said. Ms. King, perhaps you should consider. No, they have 6 days left. They can use them to pack. My clients are prepared to argue that the eviction is retaliatory and. Retaliatory for what? Cade interrupted. They were never legal tenants. They moved in without permission and refused to leave when asked. There's a family relationship here that complicates. The family relationship is exactly why this is happening, I said. They used it to manipulate me into letting them take over my home. After the call ended, Cade leaned back in his chair. They're getting desperate. Good. Marlene, there's something else. I got a call from the county clerk's office. Someone tried to file a fraudulent deed transfer on your property. My blood went cold. What? Someone forged your signature on documents that would have transferred ownership to your parents. Luckily, the clerk caught the discrepancy and flagged it. They tried to steal my apartment? Looks like it. I've already filed a police report, but I wanted you to know. That evening, I confronted them. Which one of you tried to forge my signature on a deed transfer? The silence was deafening. I know one of you did it. The county clerk has the documents. Dad finally spoke. We were trying to protect the family asset. My apartment is not a family asset. It's my asset. We put our lives on hold to help you, Mom said. We deserve some security. You put your lives on hold to help yourselves to my home. We're your parents, Dad shouted. We raised you. We deserve some consideration. You deserve exactly what you gave me when I needed help. Nothing. Daisy was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. You're destroying our family over an apartment. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just refusing to be destroyed anymore. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done being the responsible one. I'm done being the backup plan. I'm done being invisible in my own life. So you're going to make us homeless? I'm going to make you responsible for yourselves for the first time in your lives. Mom stood up, her face twisted with rage. You're not the daughter we raised. You're right. The daughter you raised would have let you walk all over her forever. But she's gone. Fine, Dad said, grabbing his coat. We'll be out by Friday. Good. But don't expect us to forgive this. I looked at these people who had taken my money, my home, my recovery time, and tried to steal my property deed. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for my keys. They left on a Thursday morning while I was at physical therapy. I came home to find my keys on the kitchen counter and the apartment eerily quiet. No ring lights, no camera equipment, no branded wellness products cluttering my counters. Just my home. Finally. Hazel came over that evening with champagne and takeout. How does it feel? She asked, settling onto my couch. My couch, in my living room. Quiet. Really, really quiet. Good quiet or bad quiet? I looked around the space that was mine again. Good quiet. Definitely good quiet. My phone had been buzzing all day with texts I hadn't answered. Finally, I picked it up. Mom, I hope you're happy. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. Dad, we're staying at a motel until we can find something permanent. Thanks for that. Daisy, my brand partnerships are falling through because I can't deliver the content I promised. You've cost me thousands. I showed the messages to Hazel. Are you going to respond? What would I say? You're welcome for the 30 days notice I didn't legally have to give you. That works. I deleted the messages without responding. The next morning, Sloane called. I wanted to apologize, she said, for being part of the chaos in your apartment. You were just doing your job. Yeah, but I should have said something sooner. What they were doing to you wasn't right. What's Daisy's plan now? Sloane was quiet for a moment. Honestly, she's scrambling. She built her whole brand around this perfect family narrative, and now that's falling apart. Her engagement is down 60% since she had to start filming in hotel rooms. And the brand partnerships? Most of them pulled out when she couldn't deliver the content she promised. Turns out authentic home lifestyle doesn't work when you're living in a Hampton Inn. I almost felt bad. Almost. What about my parents? They're struggling. Your dad's been calling everyone he knows, trying to find a place they can afford. Your mom keeps posting on Facebook about ungrateful children. Sounds about right. Marlene, for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. That afternoon, I was reorganizing my bedroom when someone knocked. I opened the door to find a woman I didn't recognize. Are you Marlene? Yes. I'm Janet from the apartment management company. I heard about what happened with your family. My stomach dropped. Is there a problem? Actually, no. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? Your parents have been calling our office for weeks, claiming they had tenant rights in your apartment. They were threatening to sue us for wrongful eviction. She smiled. When we explained that you own the unit and we have nothing to do with your family disputes, your father got very creative with his language. I'm sorry about that. Don't be. We deal with entitled people all the time, but it's rare to see someone handle it as cleanly as you did. Proper legal notice, everything by the book. After she left, I called Cade. Any word on the deed forgery case? The DA decided not to prosecute. First offense, family dispute, no actual financial loss since it was caught in time. So they get away with it. They get away with the criminal charges, but I've filed a civil restraining order preventing them from making any future claims on your property. Good. Marlene, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you regret it? Any of it? I looked around my apartment at the space that felt like mine again, at the bedroom where I'd been sleeping peacefully for a week. No, I don't regret it at all. That evening, I opened my laptop and navigated to Reddit. I'd been lurking on the family drama subreddits for months, reading stories that made my situation seem normal by comparison. I created a throwaway account and started typing. I paid off my sister's six-figure debt so she could live her dream. When I needed help after a car accident, my parents said, "She can't pause her life for you." Then they asked for my keys to help out. Their faces turned white when they found the eviction notice on my door, addressed to them. I wrote the whole story, every detail, every conversation, every moment of manipulation, and every second of satisfaction when I served those papers. The responses started coming in immediately. Holy shit, you're a legend. This is the most satisfying revenge story I've ever read. Your family sounds like narcissists. Good for you for standing up to them. Please tell me you're not going to let them back in. I replied to that last one. Never again. I learned the difference between being responsible and being a doormat. I'm keeping my keys, my apartment, and my boundaries. My phone rang. Hazel. Are you reading the comments on your Reddit post? You found it? Girl, it's going viral. Someone screenshot it and posted it on Twitter. You're famous. I scrolled through the responses, hundreds of them now, people sharing their own stories of family manipulation, others cheering my decision. One comment stood out. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your family is stop enabling them. They'll either learn to stand on their own, or they won't, but at least you'll know who you really are. I closed the laptop and looked around my quiet apartment. For the first time in years, I knew exactly who I was. I was Marlene. I owned my own home, and I was done being anyone's backup plan. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom. We need to talk. I deleted it without reading the rest and turned off my phone. Some conversations were over.
The text message notification chimed at 2:47 a.m. and I should have ignored it. Should have rolled over in my king-sized prison bed and pretended I didn't see Casey's phone glowing on his nightstand. But curiosity killed more than just cats, and I was about to learn exactly how much. My name is Paige, and I've been living in a golden cage for 3 years. The estate sprawls across 47 acres of pristine Connecticut countryside, complete with manicured gardens, a tennis court I'm not allowed to use when Casey has business associates over, and enough marble to build a small museum. From the outside, it looks like paradise. From the inside, it feels like solitary confinement with Egyptian cotton sheets. I slipped Casey's phone off the nightstand, my heart hammering against my ribs. His passcode was still my birthday. A cruel irony considering he'd forgotten the actual date 2 years running. The message was from someone named Maren. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. This charade with your little housewife is getting old. When are you finally going to pull the trigger? My blood turned to ice water. I scrolled up, my hands trembling. Casey. Soon. Lawyer says we need to be strategic about the timing. Don't want her getting any ideas about the estate. Maren. She's too stupid to figure anything out. Have you seen her lately? She looks like a ghost wandering around that mausoleum you keep her in. Casey. Perfect. Easier to handle when she's broken down. Trust me, by the time I'm done, she'll be grateful for whatever scraps I throw her. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. Casey stirred but didn't wake. I held my breath, watching his chest rise and fall, this man I'd promised to love and honor who was plotting to destroy me in my sleep. I picked up the phone and kept reading. Maren. What about the prenup? Casey. Ironclad. She gets nothing. The estate, the investments, the business, all protected. She'll walk away with whatever's in her personal account. Maybe 50 grand if she's lucky. Maren. 50 grand, that's it? After 3 years of playing the perfect wife? Casey. She should have thought about that before she married up. Besides, what's she going to do? She has no friends, no family that matters, no job skills. I made sure of that. I wanted to vomit, or scream, or both. Or instead, I carefully placed the phone back exactly where I'd found it and crept out of the bedroom. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, portraits of Casey's ancestors watching me with dead eyes. I'd always hated those paintings. Now I understood why. They looked just like him. The house felt different at night. During the day, it was a stage set where I performed the role of the grateful wife. At night, it revealed itself for what it really was, a beautiful trap. I found myself in Casey's study, a room I was technically allowed to enter but never encouraged to linger in. The mahogany desk dominated the space, its surface clear except for a leather blotter and a crystal paperweight shaped like a bull. How fitting. The desk drawers were locked, but I knew where Casey kept the key. He'd shown me once, years ago, back when he still pretended to trust me. Just in case something happens to me, he'd said, kissing my forehead. You'll need to know where the important papers are. What a joke. The only thing that would happen to Casey was him walking away from our marriage richer and more powerful than ever. I opened the bottom drawer and found a manila folder labeled Estate Documentation. Inside were property surveys, tax assessments, and legal documents I didn't understand. But one thing caught my eye. A geological survey from 15 years ago, before Casey had even bought the property. The technical language was mostly gibberish, but certain phrases jumped out. Significant groundwater reserves, potential commercial value, recommend further investigation. I photographed every page with my phone, my hands steadier now than they'd been in months. For the first time since reading those texts, I felt something other than despair. I felt curious. Casey thought he knew everything about this estate, about me, about what I was capable of. He'd spent 3 years systematically isolating me, controlling every aspect of my life, making me smaller and smaller until I barely cast a shadow. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd forgotten that I was my grandmother's granddaughter, and she'd always told me, "Know the ground you walk on, Paige. Land keeps secrets, but it also keeps promises." I closed the drawer and locked it, leaving everything exactly as I'd found it. Upstairs, Casey was still sleeping peacefully, probably dreaming about his new life with Marin. Let him dream. I had work to do. The next morning, Casey left for the city at exactly 7:30 a.m., same as always. I watched his BMW disappear down the winding driveway from the kitchen window, counting to 60 before I moved. "Helen," I called to our housekeeper, who was loading the dishwasher. "I'm going to walk the grounds today. Get some fresh air." She looked up, surprised. I hadn't voluntarily left the house in months. "That's wonderful, Mrs. Grant. Should I pack you a lunch?" "Just some water, thanks." I'd never really explored the estate before. Casey had always made it clear that certain areas were off limits, too dangerous, too muddy, too something. But standing at the edge of the formal gardens, I realized I'd been living on this land for 3 years without knowing what I was standing on. The geological survey was folded in my jacket pocket. I pulled it out, trying to match the technical drawings to the actual landscape. According to the map, there should be a natural spring somewhere in the northeast corner of the property. I found it after 20 minutes of hiking through overgrown trails. A small stream bubbled up from between moss-covered rocks, crystal clear and surprisingly strong. I knelt down and cupped the water in my hands. It was ice cold and tasted better than anything that came out of our kitchen tap. My phone buzzed. A text from Casey. "Staying in the city tonight. Business dinner. Don't wait up." Right, business dinner with Marin, no doubt. I took photos of the spring, the surrounding area, everything. Then I called my sister. "Paige?" Vivian's voice was sharp with concern. "You never call during the day. What's wrong? I need to ask you something, and I need you to not freak out." "Oh God, what did he do now?" I told her about the texts, about the divorce plans, about the geological survey. Vivian listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her. "That bastard," she finally said. "I knew he was controlling, but this is next level. Viv, I need to know. Do you remember what Grandma used to say about land?" "Which thing?" "She said a lot of weird stuff about land. About knowing the ground you walk on. About land keeping secrets and promises." Vivian was quiet for a moment. "She used to say that land was the only thing that couldn't lie to you. That if you paid attention, really paid attention, it would tell you everything you needed to know." "Do you think she meant something specific?" "Paige, Grandma was a lot of things, but she wasn't mystical. She was practical. If she said land keeps promises, she meant it literally, like financially." After we hung up, I sat by the spring for another hour, thinking. The water rights survey was 15 years old. A lot could change in 15 years. Property values, water scarcity, environmental regulations. I needed expert help, but I couldn't use Casey's contacts. I needed someone who didn't know him, someone who wouldn't report back. That evening, I used the computer in the guest room to research water rights consultants. I found a company based in Hartford, far enough from Casey's usual circles, but close enough for a meeting. The next morning, I called them. "Holmes Environmental Consulting. This is Jorge." "Hi, I'm calling about a property assessment. I inherited some land and I'm trying to understand its value." "Sure, I can help with that. What kind of property are we talking about?" 47 acres in Connecticut. There's a natural spring, and I found an old geological survey that mentioned groundwater reserves." Jorge's tone shifted, became more interested. "How old is the survey?" 15 years. "And you're the owner?" I hesitated. Technically, Casey owned the estate, but the way he'd been talking about the divorce, about leaving me with nothing, it's complicated. "I'm married, but I'm exploring my options." "I understand. Listen, can you meet me at the property? I'd need to see the site and review any documentation you have." "When?" "How about Thursday? My husband's in the city that day." "Perfect. I'll text you the address." After I hung up, I realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear this time, but from something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. I spent the rest of the week preparing. I made copies of everything in Casey's desk drawer, researched water rights law, and practiced explaining the situation without sounding like a desperate housewife plotting revenge. Thursday morning, Casey left for the city, as usual. At 10 a.m., a dusty pickup truck pulled into our circular driveway. Jorge was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-40s, with kind eyes and calloused hands. He looked around at the estate with obvious appreciation. "Beautiful property," he said. "How long have you lived here?" 3 years, but I'm just starting to really see it. We walked to the spring together. Jorge knelt by the water, just like I had, but he knew what he was looking for. He pulled out instruments I didn't recognize, took measurements, made notes. "Mrs. Page, just Page. Page, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer." My heart started racing. "Okay, do you have any idea what you're sitting on here?" "Water?" Jorge laughed, but not unkindly. "Not just water. This is a primary aquifer. Based on these flow rates and the geological survey you showed me, you're looking at potentially millions of gallons of high-quality groundwater." Millions? And with the current drought conditions, water scarcity issues, and new environmental regulations, water rights are more valuable than ever. I'm talking serious money, Paige. Life-changing money. I stared at the innocent-looking spring, this little stream that had been quietly flowing on our property for who knows how long. "How much money?" Jorge pulled out his phone and showed me recent sales data. Similar properties in Connecticut have sold water rights for anywhere from $2 to $8 million. $8 million, flowing under Casey's feet every day, and he had no idea. What would I need to do to sell the rights? That depends on how the property is titled and what kind of legal situation you're in. I took a deep breath. It's complicated. Vivian arrived Saturday morning with 2 suitcases and a scowl that could cut glass. "Where is he?" she demanded, marching through the front door like she owned the place. "City. He won't be back until Sunday night." "Good. We need to talk." Helen appeared with coffee and pastries, shooting me a knowing look. "I'll be in the garden if you need anything, Mrs. Grant." Vivian waited until Helen was gone, then turned on me. "Paige, what the hell are you doing?" "What do you mean?" "I mean this whole water rights thing. You called me talking about millions of dollars and geological surveys like you're some kind of real estate mogul. You can barely order takeout without asking Casey's permission." The words stung because they were true, or had been true. "Things are different now." "Are they?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you're still in the same house, still married to the same controlling asshole, still jumping at shadows." "I'm not jumping at..." "You whispered the entire time we talked on the phone yesterday, in your own house." I set down my coffee cup harder than necessary. "What do you want me to say, Viv? That I should just roll over and let him destroy me? I want you to fight back. Actually fight back, not just whatever this is. This is fighting back. This is hiding. Again." Vivian leaned forward. "Do you know what Mom said when I told her I was coming to visit you?" "I don't want to know." She said, "Poor Paige, she never did learn how to stand up for herself." The familiar shame washed over me, hot and suffocating. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you made a decision without considering what Casey would think? When was the last time you left this house without permission? "I don't need permission to..." "Then prove it. Come with me to lunch in town, right now." I opened my mouth to explain why that wasn't possible, then stopped. Why wasn't it possible? Casey was gone. I had a car. I was a grown woman. "Fine," I said. "Let's go." Vivian's eyebrows shot up. "Really?" "Really." We drove to the little bistro in town, the one I'd been wanting to try for months. The hostess seated us by the window, and for the first time in ages, I felt normal, like a person instead of a possession. "So, tell me about this water consultant," Vivian said over her salad. "Jorge, he thinks the water rights could be worth millions." "And you trust him?" "He has no reason to lie. He doesn't even know Casey exists." "Yet. What happens when Casey finds out? He won't, not until it's too late. Vivian studied my face. You've changed. Have I? There's something different about you, harder. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Casey. Where are you? Helen said you left. My stomach clenched automatically, the old fear response kicking in. Then I looked around the restaurant, at the normal people having normal conversations, at my sister watching me with sharp eyes. I typed back, having lunch with Vivian, back later. I didn't know she was visiting. Surprise visit. We need to talk when I get home. I put the phone away without responding. Let me guess, Vivian said. He's checking up on you. It's fine. It's not fine. It's never been fine. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Paige, I need you to understand something. Whatever you're planning with this water thing, it's not going to work if you're still afraid of him. I'm not afraid. You're terrified. I can see it in your face every time that phone buzzes. She was right, and we both knew it. So, what do I do? You get help, real help, legal help. I can't use Casey's lawyers. Then find your own. That afternoon, while Vivian napped off her jet lag, I researched family law attorneys. I needed someone who specialized in high-asset divorces, someone who wouldn't be intimidated by Casey's reputation. I found a firm in Hartford and called their office. Quinn and Associates, this is Jamie. Hi, I need to speak with someone about a divorce, a complicated one. I handle those. Can you tell me a bit about your situation? My husband is planning to divorce me and leave me with nothing, but I may have discovered assets he doesn't know about. Hidden assets? Not hidden exactly, just overlooked. Can you come in for a consultation? When? How about Monday afternoon, 2 o'clock? Perfect. Sunday night, Casey returned from the city in a foul mood. He barely acknowledged Vivian's presence and went straight to his study. We need to talk, he called from the doorway. Vivian squeezed my shoulder. Remember what we discussed. I followed Casey into his study. He closed the door behind us and turned to face me, his expression cold. I don't like surprises, Paige. It was just lunch. With your sister, who I didn't know was coming. She's family. She doesn't need an invitation. Casey's eyes narrowed. Everything okay with you lately? You seem different. Different how? I don't know. More defiant. The word hung in the air between us. Defiant. Like I was a child who'd talked back instead of a wife who'd had lunch with her sister. I'm fine, Casey. Good. Because I've been thinking about our future, and I need to know you're on board with some changes I'm considering. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my voice steady. What kind of changes? We'll discuss it later, when your sister's gone. He opened the study door, dismissing me. As I walked upstairs, I heard him on the phone. It's me. Yes, she's acting strange. No, I don't think she knows anything, but we should move faster than planned. I paused on the landing, listening. Set up the meeting with your lawyer. I want this done by the end of the month. The end of the month. 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks to save myself. Monday afternoon, I sat across from Jamie in her Hartford office, trying not to fidget with my wedding ring. So, let me understand this, Jamie said, reviewing her notes. Your husband is planning to divorce you, leave you essentially penniless, and he's moved up his timeline to the end of this month. That's right. And you've discovered water rights on the property that could be worth millions. According to the consultant, yes. Jamie leaned back in her chair. Here's the thing, Paige. Connecticut is an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets get divided fairly, not necessarily equally. But if your husband can prove the estate was his separate property before marriage, it was. He bought it 2 years before we met. Then you'd have no claim to it in a divorce. However, she held up a finger, water rights are a different animal entirely. They can be severed from the land and sold separately. Meaning? Meaning if you can establish ownership of those rights independent of the property itself, you might have options. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Heard you've been asking questions about Casey. We should meet. Marin. I stared at the screen, my blood turning cold. Everything okay? Jamie asked. His mistress just texted me. What does she want? To meet, apparently. Jamie frowned. That's unusual. Mistresses typically avoid the wife, unless she's worried about something. I texted back, when and where? The response came immediately. Coffee shop on Main Street, 1 hour. I have to go, I told Jamie. Paige, be careful. If they're moving up their timeline, they might be getting desperate. An hour later, I walked into the coffee shop and spotted Marin immediately. She was everything I wasn't. Polished, confident, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Paige. She stood up, extending a manicured hand. Thank you for coming. I didn't shake it. What do you want? To talk, woman to woman. About what? Marin gestured to the chair across from her. About Casey, about your marriage, about the future. I sat down, every muscle tense. I know this is awkward, Marin continued, but I think we can help each other. Help each other how? Casey's told me about the divorce, about the prenup, about how difficult you've been lately. Difficult? Asking questions, snooping around, making him nervous. So Casey had noticed my behavior. I don't know what you're talking about. Marin smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Come on, Paige. We both know you're smarter than Casey gives you credit for. The question is, what are you going to do with that intelligence? I'm listening. Casey wants this divorce to be clean. Quick. No drama, no fighting, no ugly court battles that could damage his reputation. And you want that too. Of course I do. I'm going to be his wife soon. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. So what's your offer? Cooperate with the divorce. Don't fight the prenup. In exchange, Casey's prepared to be generous, more generous than the prenup requires. How generous? $200,000, cash, plus you keep your personal belongings and your car. I almost laughed. $200,000 when I was sitting on water rights worth millions. That's very generous, I said carefully. I'm glad you see it that way. Can I think about it? Of course, but don't take too long. Casey's patience has limits. That evening, Casey was unusually affectionate at dinner. He poured wine, asked about my day, even complimented Helen's cooking. You seem relaxed, I said. I am. I had a good day, productive meetings. About what? Business, boring stuff. He reached across the table and took my hand. I've been thinking about us, Paige, about our future. Oh? I know I've been distant lately, distracted, but I want you to know that whatever happens, I care about you. The lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly I almost believed it. That's nice to hear. I met with some people today about making some changes, financial changes that could benefit both of us. What kind of changes? I can't get into details yet, but I want you to know that I'm looking out for your interests too. My phone buzzed, a text from Jorge. Can you meet tomorrow? I have news about the water rights. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. Who was that? Casey asked. Vivian. She's worried about her flight tomorrow. Right, I'll be sorry to see her go. Another lie. Casey had barely spoken to Vivian during her entire visit. After dinner, I helped Helen clear the dishes. Mrs. Grant, she said quietly, I found something today while cleaning Mr. Grant's study. She pulled a folded paper from her apron pocket. It fell out of one of his books. I unfolded it. It was a letter, written in my grandmother's careful handwriting, addressed to me. My dearest Paige, if you're reading this, It means Helen has given you this letter as I instructed. I hope you never need the information I'm about to share, but I fear you might. The estate Casey bought sits on land that once belonged to our family. Land that was stolen from us through legal trickery 60 years ago. I've spent decades researching the original property rights, and I believe there may be a way to reclaim what was always ours. The documents you need are in the safety deposit box at First National Bank, box 247. The key is hidden behind the loose brick in the garden wall, third brick from the left, bottom row. Trust no one but Helen with this information. She's been my eyes and ears for longer than you know. Be careful, my darling. Some cages are harder to escape than others. Grandma, I stared at the letter, my hands shaking. Mrs. Grant? Helen whispered. Are you all right? Helen, how long have you known about this? Your grandmother asked me to watch over you when you married Mr. Grant. She was worried about him from the beginning. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She made me promise to wait until you were ready to fight for yourself. I looked at Helen's kind, weathered face. And you think I'm ready now? I think you've been ready for weeks. You just needed to realize it yourself. Upstairs, Casey was on the phone again, his voice low and urgent. No, she doesn't suspect anything. Yes, I'm sure. The meeting with your lawyer is set for Friday. By next week, this will all be over. Friday. 4 days. I had 4 days to turn the tables on my husband. Tuesday morning, Casey announced he was cutting off my personal credit cards. Just temporarily, he said over breakfast, not looking up from his phone. Cash flow issues with one of my investments. What am I supposed to use for expenses? Ask Helen to put everything on the household account, or ask me if you need something specific. The message was clear. Complete financial control. No independence, no privacy, no way to hire lawyers or consultants without his knowledge. Of course, I said sweetly. Whatever you think is best. Casey finally looked up, surprised by my compliance. Good. I'm glad you understand. After he left for the city, I drove to First National Bank. The safety deposit box key was exactly where Grandma's letter said it would be, hidden behind a loose brick that looked like it had been disturbed recently. I'd like to access box 247, I told the bank clerk. I'll need to see identification and verify you're an authorized user. My heart sank. Of course Grandma couldn't have put me on the account. I'd been a teenager when she died. Actually, the clerk said, checking her computer, it looks like the box was transferred to your name 3 years ago, right around the time you got married. 3 years ago. Grandma had been gone for 5 years by then. Transferred by whom? Helen Richardson. She had power of attorney for the original owner. Helen, always one step ahead. Inside the safety deposit box were dozens of documents. Property deeds, survey maps, legal correspondence dating back to the 1960s, and a thick folder labeled Water Rights, Original Grant 1962. I photographed everything with my phone, then called Jorge. I need to see you today. I have new information. I was just about to call you. I have news too. Can you meet me at the property? An hour later, Jorge was spreading documents across Casey's dining room table while Helen served coffee and kept watch. This changes everything, Jorge said, studying Grandma's papers. According to these documents, your family held the original water rights to this entire area. They were never legally transferred when the land was sold. What does that mean? It means you may already own the water rights. You don't need to buy them from your husband. They were never his to begin with. My phone buzzed. A text from Marin. Time's up. Casey needs an answer about our offer. I showed Jorge the message. Who's Marin? The mistress. She offered me $200,000 to cooperate with the divorce. Jorge whistled. They're scared. They know something. What's your news? I've been doing more research on the aquifer. It's bigger than I initially thought. We're not talking about 2 to 8 million anymore. How much bigger? Try 20 to 30 million, maybe more. The room spun. $30 million. There's something else, Jorge continued. I've been contacted by a state environmental agency. They're looking for private water sources to help with the drought emergency. They're prepared to pay premium prices for long-term contracts. How premium? 50 million over 10 years, guaranteed. Helen dropped her coffee cup. It shattered on the marble floor. Mrs. Grant, she whispered, you need to see this. She was staring out the window. Casey's BMW was coming up the driveway. He's not supposed to be back until tonight, I said. Jorge started gathering the documents. Where can I hide these? Upstairs, guest room. Hurry. I helped Jorge carry everything upstairs while Helen cleaned up the broken coffee cup. By the time Casey walked through the front door, we were sitting in the living room having what looked like a perfectly innocent conversation about landscaping. Jorge Holmes, Jorge said, standing to shake Casey's hand. I was just telling your wife about some drainage issues in your back garden. Casey's eyes narrowed. Drainage issues? Nothing serious, just some standing water after heavy rains. Might want to have it looked at before it becomes a problem. I wasn't aware we had any drainage problems. They're easy to miss, Jorge said smoothly. I'll send you a report with my recommendations. After Jorge left, Casey cornered me in the kitchen. What was that really about? Exactly what he said. Drainage problems. Since when do you care about drainage problems? Since Helen mentioned it was killing the roses. Casey studied my face. You're lying. I'm not. Yes, you are. You get this little wrinkle between your eyebrows when you lie. You always have. My hand flew to my forehead automatically. There it is, Casey said. Now tell me what's really going on. Nothing's going on. Paige, I'm trying to be patient with you, but my patience has limits. Is that a threat? It's a fact. I know you've been acting strange lately, asking questions, meeting with people, going places without telling me. I had lunch with my sister. And what else? Nothing else. Casey grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. I'm going to ask you one more time. What are you up to? Let go of me. Answer the question. I said let go. Or what? You'll call the police? Tell them what? That your husband asked you a question? Helen appeared in the doorway. Mr. Grant, there's a phone call for you. Says it's urgent. Casey released my wrist and stalked out of the kitchen. Thank you, I whispered to Helen. There's no phone call, she whispered back. But you need to be more careful. He's suspicious. That night, Casey was on the phone until almost midnight. I could hear him through the bedroom wall, his voice getting more agitated as the conversation went on. No, I don't think she knows about the divorce yet, but something's changed. Yes, I'm sure. Move the meeting up. Tomorrow, if possible. I don't care what it costs. Just get it done. Tomorrow. He was moving the meeting to tomorrow. I waited until Casey was asleep, then crept downstairs to call Jamie. They moved the meeting up, I whispered into the phone. It's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow? That's not enough time to... It has to be enough time. What do I need to do? Meet me at my office first thing in the morning. And Paige, bring everything, every document, every piece of evidence you have. What if Casey tries to stop me? Then we'll deal with that too. But Paige, once we start this, there's no going back. Are you ready for that? I looked around the dark kitchen, at the marble counters and crystal chandelier, at the golden cage that had been my prison for 3 years. I'm ready. Wednesday morning, Casey left for his meeting at 8 a.m. sharp. I waited exactly 10 minutes, then grabbed the documents from the guest room and drove straight to Jamie's office. We need to move fast, Jamie said, spreading everything across her conference table. If he's serving you papers today, we have maybe 6 hours to get ahead of this. What's the plan? We file a motion to freeze all marital assets pending investigation of separate property claims. Then we establish your independent ownership of the water rights through your grandmother's estate. Can we do that in 6 hours? We can try, but I need you to sign some papers first. Jamie slid a stack of documents across the table. This establishes a corporation in your name, Murray Water Holdings. It'll be the entity that owns and sells the water rights. Murray, your maiden name, keeps it separate from anything connected to Casey. I signed everything, my hand shaking slightly. Now, Jamie said, I need you to call Jorge and tell him to expedite everything. If we're going to sell these rights, we need to do it today. Today? Before Casey's lawyers can file any injunctions or freeze orders. I called Jorge while Jamie prepared the legal filings. Jorge, we need to close the water rights deal today. Today? Paige, these things usually take weeks. We don't have weeks. Can you do it or not? The State Environmental Agency has been pushing for a quick close. If you're willing to accept their $50 million offer, I can have contracts ready by this afternoon. Do it. At 2 p.m., I was back at the estate, sitting in Casey's study with a stack of contracts worth $50 million. Jorge had worked miracles. The state agency was so desperate for water sources they'd agreed to an emergency closing. Sign here, here, and here, Jorge said, pointing to signature lines. This transfers the water rights from your grandmother's estate to Murray Water Holdings. This sells those rights to the state for $50 million, paid in installments over 10 years. And Casey can't touch any of it? Not a penny. The rights were never his, and the corporation is entirely separate from marital assets. I signed the contracts just as Helen burst into the study. Mrs. Grant, Mr. Grant is coming up the driveway, and he's not alone. Through the window, I could see Casey's BMW followed by a black sedan. Lawyers, Jorge said grimly. They're here to serve you. What do I do? Act surprised, act hurt, act like the innocent wife who has no idea what's happening. Jorge gathered the contracts and stuffed them into his briefcase. I'll get these filed immediately. As of right now, you're worth $50 million. He slipped out the back door just as Casey walked through the front, followed by a man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. Paige, Casey called. Can you come into the living room, please? I found them standing by the fireplace. Casey looked nervous. The other man looked like he'd done this 1,000 times. Paige, this is Nigel Elliott. He's a lawyer. Nice to meet you, I said, extending my hand. Nigel didn't shake it. Instead, he pulled papers from his briefcase. Mrs. Grant, I'm serving you with a petition for divorce. The papers felt heavy in my hands. I stared at them, letting my face crumple. Casey, what is this? I'm sorry, Paige. I didn't want it to happen this way. You're divorcing me? We've grown apart. You know that. But I thought we were working on things. Casey had the decency to look uncomfortable. It's better this way, for both of us. I don't understand. Is there someone else? That's not relevant, Nigel interrupted. What's relevant is that your husband is prepared to be generous in the settlement. Generous how? $200,000, plus your personal belongings and your vehicle. I let the tears come. They weren't entirely fake. 3 years of marriage ending with a legal document and a stranger in my living room was genuinely devastating, even if I'd known it was coming. 200,000, that's all? It's more than the prenup requires, Nigel said coldly. Your husband is under no legal obligation to give you anything. Casey, please. Can we talk about this privately? Casey looked at Nigel, who nodded. 5 minutes, Nigel said. I'll wait in the car. After he left, Casey sat down across from me. I know this is hard, he said, but it's for the best. Is it because of her, Marin? Casey's jaw tightened. How do you know about Marin? She texted me, asked me to meet her. What did she say? That you wanted a clean divorce, no fighting. And I don't want to fight, Casey. I just want to understand why. Casey relaxed slightly. We want different things, Paige. You want a quiet life, a simple life. I need more than that. So you're leaving me for her. I'm leaving you for me. My phone buzzed. A text from Jamie. Contracts filed, water rights officially transferred. You're free. I looked at Casey, this man who'd controlled every aspect of my life for 3 years, who thought he was leaving me with nothing. Okay, I said quietly. Okay? I'll sign the papers. I won't fight the divorce. Casey's relief was visible. Thank you. I know this isn't easy, but I have one condition. His expression hardened. You're not in a position to make conditions. I want to stay in the house until the divorce is final, just a few weeks. Paige, please. I need time to figure out where I'm going, what I'm going to do. You owe me that much. Casey considered this. Fine, but no drama, no scenes, and if you change your mind about fighting this, I won't. Good. He stood up. Nigel will be in touch about the paperwork. After they left, Helen found me sitting in the study, staring at the divorce papers. Mrs. Grant, are you all right? Helen, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did my grandmother really ask you to watch over me? Helen sat down across from me. Because she knew what kind of man Casey was. She saw how he looked at you, like you were something to be owned, not loved. And she knew about the water rights. She knew about everything. The original land theft, the water, the potential value. She spent years planning how to get it back. Why didn't she just tell me? Because you had to be ready to fight for it. She said you couldn't give someone power. They had to take it. I looked down at the divorce papers, then at my phone showing Jamie's text. Helen? Yes, Mrs. Grant? I think I'm ready to take it. Friday afternoon, Casey returned to the estate with Nigel and Maren in tow. I watched from the upstairs window as they got out of their cars, Casey gesturing grandly at the property like he was showing off his kingdom. Helen, I called softly, it's time. She nodded and disappeared downstairs. We'd rehearsed this moment for 2 days. I found them in the library, Casey behind his mahogany desk, like a king holding court. Maren sat in the leather chair to his right, looking perfectly at home. Nigel stood by the window with his briefcase. Paige, Casey said, not bothering to stand. Glad you could join us. Of course. This is my home too, for now. Maren smirked. Not for much longer. Maren, Casey warned, but he was smiling. Nigel opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. Mrs. Grant, these are the final divorce settlement documents. As discussed, you'll receive $200,000, your personal belongings, and your vehicle. That's very generous, I said, sitting down in the chair across from Casey. We think so, Casey said, especially considering the prenup. About that, I said, pulling out my own folder. I had some questions. Casey's smile faltered slightly. Questions? Well, I've been thinking about the property division, the estate specifically. What about it? I was wondering about the water rights. The room went dead silent. Casey's face went pale. Water rights? Nigel asked. Yes. I've been doing some research, and apparently water rights can be separate from land ownership. I was curious if Casey actually owns the water rights to this property. Of course I do, Casey said, but his voice was tight. I bought the entire property. Did you, though? I opened my folder and pulled out Grandma's documents. Because according to these records, the water rights to this land were never legally transferred when your family bought it in the 1960s. Nigel stepped forward. Where did you get those documents? My grandmother's safety deposit box. She was very thorough in her record keeping. Casey stood up abruptly. Paige, what are you doing? I'm protecting my interests, just like you taught me. Those documents are meaningless, ancient history. Are they? I pulled out another set of papers. Because I had a lawyer review them. Turns out they're not meaningless at all. Marin leaned forward. Casey, what is she talking about? Nothing. She's grasping at straws. Actually, I continued, I'm talking about $50 million. The number hung in the air like a bomb. 50 million? Nigel's voice cracked. That's what the state environmental agency paid for the water rights? Yesterday. Casey's face went from pale to red. That's impossible. Is it? I pulled out the sale contract. Murray Water Holdings, my corporation, officially owns and has sold the water rights to this property. The first installment of $5 million was deposited into my account this morning. Casey lunged forward and grabbed the contract. His hands were shaking as he read it. This can't be legal. I'll sue. You'll what? I stood up, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt taller than him. Sue me for selling something that was never yours? The land is mine. The land, yes, the water underneath it, that was always mine. Marin was staring at the contract over Casey's shoulder. $50 million? Over 10 years. But yes. Casey threw the papers on the floor. You conniving little... Careful, I said quietly. There are witnesses. Nigel was frantically making notes. We need to file an injunction immediately. Freeze the assets, challenge the sale. On what grounds? I asked. That my husband didn't know what he was buying when he purchased this property? That he failed to do proper due diligence? You tricked me. I protected myself. There's a difference. Casey's breathing was getting shallow. He sat down heavily in his chair. This changes everything, Nigel muttered. Does it? I asked. Because I'm still willing to honor the original divorce agreement. Everyone stared at me. You keep the land, the house, all your other assets. I keep the water rights and the money from their sale. We both walk away with what's ours. What's ours? Casey's voice was barely a whisper. You just stole $50 million from me. I didn't steal anything. I reclaimed what was stolen from my family 60 years ago. Marin stood up abruptly. Casey, I need to speak with you privately. Sit down, Casey snapped. No, I think we should... I said sit down. But Marin was already backing toward the door. This isn't what we discussed. This isn't what you promised. Marin, don't you dare. I'm sorry, Casey. I can't do this. She fled the room. A moment later, we heard the front door slam and her car starting. Casey stared at the empty doorway, his mouth hanging open. Well, I said. That was unexpected. Nigel cleared his throat. Mr. Grant, we need to discuss our options. What options? Casey's voice was hollow. She just took everything. Not everything. You still have the business, the other properties, mortgaged, all of it. I was counting on selling this place to cover the debts. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy. Might have been. Casey, I said gently, you could have just been honest with me. We could have worked together. He looked up at me with eyes full of rage and something else, fear. You planned this, all of it. I protected myself, just like you taught me to do. Casey clutched his chest suddenly, his breathing becoming labored. Mr. Grant? Nigel stepped forward. Are you all right? Casey tried to stand but collapsed back into his chair. Can't breathe? Helen, I called. She appeared instantly, as if she'd been waiting just outside the door. Call 911, I said. I think he's having a panic attack. As Helen made the call, I knelt beside Casey's chair. Breathe slowly, I said. In and out. You're going to be okay. He looked at me with confusion and hatred and something that might have been respect. Why? He whispered. Because despite everything, I'm not you. The ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. As the paramedics loaded Casey onto a stretcher, he grabbed my wrist. This isn't over, he said. Yes, I said quietly. It is. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in October. Casey didn't contest it. Couldn't contest it, really, not after his lawyers explained that fighting me would only cost him more money he didn't have. I signed the papers in Jamie's office while Casey signed his at the hospital, still recovering from what the doctors called acute stress-induced cardiac episode. Panic attack, in other words. Turns out losing $50 million in one afternoon can do that to a person. So what now? Jamie asked, sliding the final documents into a folder. Now I figure out what comes next. Any ideas? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Grant, this is David Chen from the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection. I nearly dropped the phone. Yes? I hope you don't mind me calling directly. We got your number from Jorge Holmes. We have a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? We're establishing a new water conservation task force. We need someone with your expertise to help identify and develop other private water sources throughout the state. The position comes with a substantial consulting fee and equity participation in future deals. I looked at Jamie, who was listening with raised eyebrows. Can I think about it? Of course. But Mrs. Grant, what you accomplished with the Murray Water Holdings deal, that's exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. After I hung up, Jamie grinned. From housewife to water mogul in 6 months. Not bad. Is that what I am now? A mogul? You're whatever you want to be. That's the point. I drove back to the estate one last time. The moving truck had already taken my belongings to the condo I'd bought in Hartford. Nothing fancy, just a place that was mine. Helen was waiting on the front steps with a small suitcase. Ready? I asked. More than ready. She'd accepted my offer to be my personal assistant at triple her old salary. Mr. Grant called this morning. What did he want? To fire me. I told him I'd already quit. We got in my car, not the BMW Casey had generously let me keep, but a new Tesla I'd bought myself, and drove toward the gate. Mrs. Grant, Helen said as we reached the end of the driveway, can I ask you something? Of course, and it's just Paige now. Do you ever regret it? What you did to him? I thought about Casey, probably sitting in that big empty house, trying to figure out how to pay the mortgage without the windfall he'd been counting on. Marin had moved on to someone else within a week, a tech entrepreneur she'd met at some charity gala. No, I said. I don't regret it. Not even a little? He had 3 years to treat me like a partner instead of a possession. 3 years to be honest about his plans. 3 years to show me even basic respect. And instead, he tried to throw me away like garbage. My phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. Saw the news article about your water deal. Mom wants to know if you're taking investors. I laughed and showed Helen the message. Your mother wants to invest? My mother wants to take credit. There's a difference. We drove in comfortable silence for a while, the estate disappearing in the rearview mirror. Paige, Helen said eventually, what your grandmother wrote in that letter, about some cages being harder to escape than others. Yeah? She was wrong about one thing. What's that? You didn't escape the cage. You bought it, renovated it, and turned it into something completely different. That evening, I sat in my new living room with a glass of wine and my laptop, reading the news coverage of the divorce. The headlines were brutal. Tech executive's marriage implodes over $50 million water rights deal. Wife turns tables on cheating husband in epic revenge plot. From trophy wife to water mogul. The Paige Grant story. My phone rang. Casey's number. I almost didn't answer. Then curiosity got the better of me. Hello, Casey. Paige. His voice was different, smaller. I saw the news. I figured you would. They're making me look like an idiot. Are they wrong? Silence. I never meant for it to go this far, he said finally. Yes, you did. You meant for it to go exactly this far. You just thought you'd be the one holding all the cards at the end. What happens now? Now you figure out your life and I figure out mine. And we never see each other again? That was always the plan, wasn't it? Another silence. Paige? What? I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. It's worth something, I said. Not much, but something. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and started researching water rights law in neighboring states. The Connecticut job offer was tempting, but I had bigger ideas. My phone buzzed one more time, a text from an unknown number. Ms. Murray, this is Rebecca Walsh from Walsh Environmental Consulting in California. We've been following your work and would love to discuss a partnership opportunity. Are you available for a call tomorrow? I smiled and typed back. I'm available. Outside my window, Hartford sparkled in the evening light. Somewhere out there were aquifers and underground streams and forgotten water rights, just waiting for someone smart enough to find them. Someone like me. I raised my wine glass to the window, to the city, to whatever came next. Here's to knowing the ground you walk on, I said aloud. Then I opened my laptop and got back to work.